So I'm just going to repeat the last part. So half an hour before we start our session on Saturdays, every second Saturday, basically, you all can sign in and do a networking session with each other. And given that you come from 3 different courses, you meet people that are not in your course, which might be kind of fun. So I'm just summing it up. So first, what I would like to do, you've gone through a lot of material so far. You basically made it through half the course, right? What are some of the things that you have questions about? What are some of the things you might be struggling with? What's not really clear to you at this point? Is there anyone who wants to share some thoughts on this?
I have a question. For one of the I believe it was week 4 that you put some table, like accounting table. Then you explain why we need to go through all this funding, not get funded by one investor.
The comparison from equity to using funding sources?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So, sorry, here is so...
Nice. You're having fun over there, yay! Did you rob a bank just now?
I like this sound. I use in one of the documentary. I love it. Each time. Yeah. I mean, I use it in irony way. That's why each time. Yeah. So yeah, the I mean, when we were going with only with equity investor, so you didn't put in incentive. Why we cannot have one investor and also have incentive, which it is 20%.
Okay, you can. So the example basically says, here is a situation where you have a movie that is funded by one person only, which by the way happens a lot. It's not rare. I don't know why anyone would do this, but it happens all the time. So I just wanted you to see what it looks like. What does a movie look like when we apply our estimates and our projected returns? What would that look like for someone who gives you all the money? It's a very real question. So they're going to see money coming back in from international distribution, right? Domestic and international. And then they're going to see there is cost associated with the sales agent. Maybe you pay a collection agent, maybe you don't. If the investor says, I don't need a collection agent, you always would want one because you relieve yourself from liability then. So you have a collection agent, you have distribution expenses. And when you apply all this, you'll see that even though you put an optimal situation in place where you say my movie is going to make 75% out of international distribution and a certain percentage out of domestic, I forgot what I put in there, but it was kind of an optimal situation or a very real reality-driven situation. And still in that case, you would face a loss. So that's an important information to just have. So you see, if I take the money from one source, this is probably not a good idea. The second thing is, to come to your question, you can of course use only the tax incentive as an additional source. That alone will give you already 20% or whatever you have in the finance plan that's non-recoupable. Of course, you can do that. So you can use elements of that other example that I gave you to optimize your financing plan with this one investor. So because now you know, having learned these things, you know these are elements that are available to you right now, but you don't have to use them all. You can use some, you can use all, you can use whatever works for you. The message for this case study was use other elements that you have available, whichever you like to use, and see why it is better for you to do that. So yes, the answer is you can basically put a finance plan together where you say, investor, I'm going to get 80% from you, and I'm going to do 20% with an incentive. And why don't you take this case and then run your own case study and see where you end up if you would do that? Because you can. You have the template there. Basically just take out all the other funding sources, or you take the equity investor and replace one portion with the with the incentive and see how much profit you would make. You can play that scenario through because you now have the starting point to do that. And then you see exactly how much money you would be making if you just use this one finance element.
Correct.
Right?
Thank you.
So what would happen in that case, for example, if we run this through just for jokes, you would pay 80, you have 80% investor, let's say 20% from a tax incentive. You would still pay 20% premium on an 80% investment agreement, and you would also pay 40%, 20% back end. So for you as a producer, this is still expensive money because it's equity. So you also want to think about yourself and saying, do I want to share this large portion that I make with this movie with my equity investor for the life of the IP? You know, because this IP is going to be connected to you and him for all its eternity and for anything that comes out of it. So that's why, to me, equity is always money that you need to think about very carefully in terms of what are you going to do with this content. Is it just going to be one movie, nothing else happens, there's not going to be merchandising, there's not going to be a TV series out of it, there's not going to be a spinning, there's not going to be a remake? Okay, then you're fine. But if you feel you can brand it out, then you have to think about, you know, this investor is going to be part of your profits the entire time. So it's just something to think about when you take a lot of money from equity.
Yeah. And is there any way that I mean, is the norm of the business 20% benefit for the equity?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you cannot negotiate.
On that. Yeah, you can of course negotiate. I always try to.
Yeah.
They give me a hard time because I know it's what, I mean, most investors kind of know what's industry standard. This 20% equity return is actually something that is not just for the movie industry, it's also for other industries. And therefore, the investor that you work with, if they have done investments in other vehicles, they're used to seeing that. So it's going to be an interesting conversation to say, you know what, I'm only giving you 10, I'm only giving you 5, I'm giving you nothing. You know, let's see what he says. I think it's never wrong to ask. And I think you can do any deal you want to do. It's just knowledge is power. You know where your starting point would be, what would be normal for you. So you don't, you know, you at least know where to start. And from there you can optimize. So you can say, you know, I decide you're giving me, like in this case, you're giving me 80% of the budget. I'm getting 20% from incentives. I'm not going to give you the 20% premium, but I am going to give you a profit participation that might be a little higher. Yeah, you can do that. Or you say, I'm just going to give you the profit participation and no premium. You know, because it's just you and him in that case. So the advantage is if you have one investor only that's kind of like a partner with you, you can have these conversations because you're more partners in that sense. Now, in my case, I very often work with a bunch of them. So I put a bunch of people in one movie, right, or in one TV show. And I need to treat them all the same because it is not good when they find out I gave other people a different deal and then they get all upset. And I don't think it's even legal, honestly. I think you have to give everyone the same deal. So I try to stick with what is a standard that I can work with and that I have included in my revenue projections as a cost component. So I can stand behind my numbers easier. If I can make that deal better, of course I'm going to try. But in my case, I would be talking to like 10 different people to try to make that happen. So it is obviously possible for you, if you only talk to one person, to have this conversation, right? Does anyone have any other questions for me?
Thank you.
Of course. Yes. Go on.
Hi. So I'm curious to see how the format for the midterm, which is due tomorrow night.
Don't worry about the due date, by the way.
Oh.
I put these due dates in because I have to put a due date in. It's just how it works. But if you guys run late on these things, don't stress over due dates or deadlines. This is not important to me. What is more important to me is that you understand the subject matter. And, you know, some people, you know, come on phone with me and say, I really didn't get this and I need more time, or I have this going on in my life right now. So don't stress over deadlines. So yes, it is due tomorrow, theoretically. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
It's all right. It's good to, that's useful information. how is the structure going to be? Is there going to be, because I know some quizzes we have a case study in it. How many case studies will there be in this?
It's just one, and that's the one we're doing together today. The reason why I throw these case studies at you is because this is your way to practice what you're going to deal with when you're out of this class. So I know they are annoying, but I think it's important for you to have different versions of things applicable, because one of them is going to apply at some point. And then you can take pieces from this and put it in there. And I'm giving you a simplified version of it all. As you do all this yourself, you're going to see it's, there's some other things that might come to it visually, but the understanding of it is the same. So even if you get, let's say you get a term sheet from Comerica, I can actually share one with you just for fun. When you see how they break down the territories, they have like 5 different ways to break down territories. In my case, I do tier 1 and tier 2. The bank does like 5 different categories. For you, it's just important to understand they will discount. How they discount, they will let you know when they send you a term sheet. The end. Because they might just discount differently for you than for me. So that's why when you go into the world, there's going to be stuff that's going to look slightly different potentially pertaining to your project, but the rules are the same, and the way people work around the stuff is the same. So that means that if I give you a template for an Excel sheet, you're free to use it, but you don't have to. You can use your own version of your own, whatever makes you more comfortable, whatever way you put your accounting together. I do it in a way that I can do a step-by-step thing so people can understand why they're doing what they're doing. But in a regular term sheet or in a regular Excel, obviously you wouldn't write step 1, do this, step 2, do this. So obviously you wouldn't do that. But I do it so that I can translate the information in pieces, in little chunks. So that means for you, you're free to use this as a tool, but you don't have to. So for the midterm, you're going to see that you're going to have a few questions where you can just write out in essay form the answer. You're going to have a few questions where you have a multiple choice. And then you're going to have one case study, which we're now doing together today. And you don't need to worry about that one. And that's a big one. I think it's even 10 points out of, I don't know how many, 30, I have no idea. I forgot it already. I have no idea how I'm grading this. This is 2 months ago. God. So, yeah, so not to worry about, the format of things. You can use whatever format works for you. And then when you send it to me, just make sure that you submit it through Canvas in a way that I can read it. So what sometimes comes to me is what is called pages. I don't know how they translate. I think it's Mac people. The Mac people send something and then it shows up as pages. I for some reason, I can't open them on my PC. I have to open them basically on my iPhone. The only way for me to look at it is on my iPhone, which is weird. So don't do pages.
Yeah, Pages is a Mac program.
Okay, thanks. Don't do that. Use anything else but that. So the way you submit it, use a Word, use a PDF, use whatever you want to use. It doesn't matter. Just know that you're going to have some, essay questions, some multiple choice, and the case study we're doing today. And you can send it in tomorrow. You can send it in the day after, whatever works for you. There won't be any question deducted. Okay,
I have a question.
Yeah, hold on a second. Oh, Molly, that's
Okay.
you. Great. I saw you. I was just looking.
I was in the test. Yeah. My question is pretty specific because I am actually already doing the midterm, and for the question 1, we have the number 4 is number 1. I mean, question 1 is asking you the revenue management and profit distribution differently for studio and independent filmmaker. I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. Are you asking how they manage their revenue differently? Is that
the cost when you're comparing the studio system with the independent system, and you look at the cost and revenue components, you'll notice that there are some differences. One is a studio is more expensive, wastes more money, has more overhead, has more development. Also, when you go to the revenue side, they don't use collection agents. They have a different way of accounting. Those are the differences that you would mention there. It's what we did in, I think, the first module, I believe it was. Just go to the summary of that module. You'll be reminded.
Is being recorded.
You'll be reminded of of what the differences are relating the financing and revenue models between those two systems, independent and studio.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure, sure. Anyone else?
Question too, yeah.
Go ahead.
On some of them, but for the essay tip questions, it says answer in 5 to 15 words. Is it okay if we go over that?
Yeah, you can write as much as you want.
Okay.
The reason why I needed to be specific is there are certain guidelines that I have to use that come from UCLA. They want me to be specific. People want to know, how much am I supposed to write here? Obviously, I don't care, but people want to know. So the structure that I get from UCLA is be specific. So I went, okay, 5 to 15 words. Is it 17? I'm not going to kill you if it's 17 or 25. So no, it's just for you to have a reference that you can be very short, or you can write a longer answer. Whatever it's signaling to tell you, feel free to do what feels right to you. But don't think you have to write a whole page on it either. You know, people think, oh my God, she's asking this question. Maybe she wants like a whole monologue about this. I wanted people to also know that. That's not expected.
Thank you.
Of course.
Jeanette, I have a question.
Yeah.
At the risk of embarrassing myself, this is fine. But I just want to disclose that I was a math major and it's driving me nuts. I fully feel like I understand the premise of everything that we've gone over. I actually am super nerdy and I really like these case studies. And the thing is that I have not been able to get to the bottom numbers like at all on any of these case studies.
Okay.
And I just can't understand why. For example,
okay, so are you using my templates, or are you doing your own?
I am following your templates and I'm also writing them by hand.
Okay, so here's what you and I are going to do. After this is over here,
Okay.
we're going to go through all of them.
I appreciate
together.
that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
because I really want you. The math thing, at the end of the day, is not important. But if you do a business plan, obviously it is important, right?
That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, you have to get the numbers. So.
You have to get the numbers right. But the many times I get them wrong, just so you know, it happens. So no one's perfect on that. But obviously, I want you to do it right. So what we'll do after this class, we'll start from scratch on all of them.
Okay.
And we go through all of them together.
Okay.
And that way you can see how it starts basically from a blank Excel spreadsheet, how
Right.
I get to where I get to, and then you can follow the steps better. Because sometimes, as helpful as these templates are, they do have formulas in them, and
Right.
they can be confusing. So
Right.
because I'm adding stuff to the case studies, and if you
Right.
don't watch that there's something added and you don't see there was a formula there, you already made the mistake.
Exactly. So, for example, I'll see a $50,000 loan added to a gap loan, the loan fee, but it wasn't mentioned in the problem. And so I'm like, where did that 50,000? That's a big.
Correct. Exactly. So sometimes I feel like I shouldn't even do these templates, but they have been helping people.
They are very helpful. I
Yeah.
vote for them. Okay.
They're not automated. They're not automated. So that means that they don't apply for every case study because you have to kind of do your own. So using this as an example, but you basically start your own spreadsheet where you do your own math. So you look at this one and say, okay, she did this here. Okay, that makes sense. We're doing the sales estimates. We're doing the incentives. Okay, now we're doing this next. Now we're doing the bank loan next. So the steps are there, you can see. But it's always better to do your own because then you have none of the formulas included that I include in my case studies, right? Because I like automating everything because I do so many of them. I do different studies for every class, for every course. So I want you to be able to understand that if the mistake comes because of my formula that was in there, right? It could happen.
It's mine. It's mine. It's all.
We'll get there.
Okay.
You're gonna chill. You have a cup of coffee. When we're done with this lesson here, you and I get online and we'll do them all together. No worries. My pleasure. Anyone else?
No, I was just going to say that I think what happens is, for instance, you have certain formulas in there that'll say it's X% of this amount, but it's there's a limit on it. So if you don't have that limit reflected in the formula, then it's gonna mess up your bottom line.
Correct.
So like on the loan, what the basis is. So
Yes.
the budget, you can't exceed what, 20% of the budget or something like
for the
that.
gap loan, correct. Exactly.
So that's where I got tripped up. I was like, oh wait, I missed this one piece. And once I changed it, I was like, oh, there's the answer.
Yeah.
But that's, I think what happens is people are, well, I know that that's where I get tripped up occasionally, is with those types of items.
Right. Exactly.
So it's not a straight formula. You can create a formula or a function so that it tests for that. But
yeah, what I do when I do when I have a case study where the cap is applicable for the gap loan, I add a line to my Excel where I put that in as a separate reminder for myself and also for you guys. So I do add, I would say, here's the entire, like for the ask, there was one case we did where we did the ask numbers instead of the take numbers. So the ask numbers for unsold rights was much higher, right? And if we would have used 50% of that as a gap loan in that case, we would have been over the 20% cap of the budget. That is basically a rule the bank tells us. The bank says, I don't give you more than 20% of your budget for your unsold rights, no matter how many unsold rights you have. I don't care. So in this case, I wanted to show what it looks like if you have more unsold rights than what a bank would actually accept. So that's why I added a line with this cap. And I left the original one in. I circulated that with some of you, and I can send it to all of you, showing that I myself added a line in that Excel sheet because this is applicable. So that's something you would have to do too, because you would remember and seeing, hold on, this is way too high. The bank's never going to give me half of this, so I'm going to have to add this. But this comes with when you're doing it more and more and more. You get more alert, and you also get more into the groove of it because you understand it automatically. You remember automatically. And that's why it's actually good to do it wrong, because in many cases, you don't learn when you do it right. You only learn when you do it wrong. When you get stuck, it's like, oh, what? And then you go through it and they're like, okay, now I get it. And that's actually the better way of learning, I think. Just I know it's a headache, but when I go back to old case studies that I did and I repeat them myself and I don't get to the answer that I did before, I'm like, hold on a second, how's it even possible? So even I have to go back and say, where did I get stuck? And it's good little, it's little training, because you want to be alert to what you're doing and what is applicable for you in your project, and how you can make it so that an investor is intrigued. Because that's all we're doing here. We're trying to put something together in a business plan later that looks interesting for an investor. Where they say, okay, why do you think you're going to make money with this? Explain to me why. And you can explain to them and say, well, here's how I'm going to plan this. I'm planning on doing a few pre-sales. I'm planning on shooting in Georgia. I'm planning on using some branding. You're going to talk to them about your roadmap, and they like that. And even if the roadmap is going to be changed, or even if the roadmap is going to be something entirely different, you have a roadmap, and that's all an investor wants to know. They want to know you don't start from scratch and you don't know what you're doing. That's why we're doing this. Does it make sense? Let me just look at the chat real quick if some people have here. Ari, this link that you sent there, would you mind putting that on the Film Finance TV Facebook as well?
Sure, I'll put that on there.
That'd be great. And then who else? I got two. You only got two, right? Marlene, if you want to join us later, you can join us. She said, he said I only got two, right? Jeanette, are you able to discuss funding, budgeting, low budget? Yes, I can do that. Okay, we can talk about the low budget in a minute. Yes, you can do a minimum of 20. La-di-da, okay. Can you explain when you would need to use a PPM? Okay, these are great questions. Some of the PPM, well, let's start with the $2 million stuff. When you have a lower budgeted movie, $2 million, by the way, is a lot of money. Anyone who says it's low budget and small, I mean, try to sign a check for that, and then we see how you feel about this. It's a lot of money. So you wanna be respectful of that. And what you have to think about is the rules apply for that budget level too, because it is a lot of money. Now, if we're talking about we're doing a movie for 50,000 or 60,000 or 100,000, we can talk about, okay, do we really need all this? Probably not. But $2 million is a range, even $1 million, honestly, is a range where you want to have some security happening. That means you want to have at least a genre defined. If the genre doesn't need a lead actor that is renowned, maybe even B+, A- kind of actor, like a horror movie would probably not need a lead actor like that. You still need a director that is proven, because even if you don't, especially for the horror genre, you need something that replaces the fact that you don't have a strong cast. And for $1 million, $2 million, your cast would be someone, it just would be one name only, and it would be someone probably in the A-, B+ range. So it's someone who maybe is strong in TV, or someone who hasn't done anything in a while in the feature film space, but it's a name people know, like Jean-Claude Van Damme. I don't know why this just came to my head. Sorry about this, but someone who hasn't done anything in a while, and people know. I mean, most people know him. Like those guys in the 90s, believe it or not, people in the foreign territories, they love these people. Was another name that comes up in the was hot in the 90s, like Kim Basinger or Sharon Stone. People like that are known to do these level movies. Sharon Stone just did a movie that was under $2 million. So these are the kind of names you look for a budget range that is between $1 million and $2 million. So you wanna try to find someone like that in that range, and that will enable you to get to where we are in getting the estimates in the 70 to 75 range for foreign, getting a few pre-sales done. With a name like that, you can usually sell Germany, you can usually sell France, and you can usually sell the UK. That's really all you need in order for pre-sales to apply. Or you can do one big territory like Germany, and then you do like a smaller like Benelux. Those territories usually go for names like that. They're the main ones. When you work with these 90s names, the European territories are usually the ones that will gravitate to that, and those are good territories for you. So if I would do a small movie like that, I would try to get pre-sales from territories where these names still mean something, and that's Europe. So it means that you get an actor like Sharon Stone to do this for a little bit of money. You give her a great back end, and you might want to give her a producing credit, and that's how that usually works. She'll then talk to you about the script and her role. She might have some comments, so she'll become more of a partner with you. But there are a lot of actors that do this, especially actors who were very famous and now maybe not so much anymore, but still like play, because actors, you have to think about, they don't just do this for money. Yes, of course they do this for money, but they really are in their world. They want to be seen. Actors love just playing a really good part. That's basically, in my experience when I work with actors, that's what they really want. That's what they're excited about. So if you have a low budget movie with a killer part for an actor to show range, that's the trick in getting them involved in that level of budget. And then you go through the same situations that we did. Now, if you do a $1 to $2 million budget and you have no one in it that anyone knows, and you have a first-time director, it's going to be very hard to make that money back. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's probably not going to happen unless the movie is so amazingly good that you screened it at Sundance and that it got a lot of attention there, like on a festival where people look at it and go, oh my God, this is so different. I've never seen anything like it. This obviously happens, yes? So I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. But it's not the normal path. So if I talk to an investor, I have to go by what's the common denominator in the industry. And I cannot go by, okay, well, there's going to be, I already know it's going to be a Sundance movie and it's going to blow everyone away and that's why I'm going to make all this money. You can't just, you can't kind of start there. So doing your homework and trying to get at least one name in there for a lead role would be, in my view, in my personal view, the best way to do a low budget movie in the $1 to $2 million range. Does that answer your question? Now, this is a very long answer to probably a short question, but does it make sense to everyone? like Kendra, your project, right? You talked to Jim about this, and we talked about this. When you pitched it to me, I was like, what? The pitch made 0 sense to me. I was like, I'm lost, right? But then we read the script, and the script's actually very good. It's just the pitch didn't connect with the script. That's also something we have to learn. Sometimes the pitch is you have to think about the pitch being your sales pitch. When I did Dark Tide, which is basically Halle Berry in a bikini with sharks, which is literally how I sold the movie. I said, you want to see Halle Berry in a bikini dealing with big white sharks? Where do we sign? Okay. The story was, of course, more complicated because Halle Berry played a shark whisperer, literally, which actually is a person that existed. We researched this in South Africa. So it's based on a real guy. It's actually a guy that's shark whisperer. They call him the Sharkman. You can read all about him. So she's a shark whisperer, and she works with these great white sharks. And one time, she goes underwater with this great white shark, dealing with him, and she doesn't pay attention, and one of her team members gets killed by the white shark. So this trauma, which is literally a backstory, is basically the reason for her stopping her business and never going into the water again, never taking anyone into the water again. And obviously she's now fear-driven, and she has to overcome this. Sounds like a drama. So if I would pitch this to my buyer, they would be like, sleep, right? So we can't do this. I know this because I'm doing the movie, and I partially, I of course worked on the script. But the buyers, they want to see, okay, what is this? It's going to be an action movie with Halle Berry on a sinking ship. People getting eaten by sharks. The end. So my sales pitch is very different than my actual, I shouldn't say very different, but it's definitely gearing towards a direction that is more a sales pitch than the actual story, because the story is very heartfelt and very emotional, and there is a lot of complexity to it. But I have to just know that the attention span of my buyer or the executive that sits in front of me is probably 30 seconds. That's all I get from the guy. And then they're going to think of something else, or who else to fire, or what else to do afterwards. So I have to grab them in that very short amount of time. And that's why I have to look at my story and say, okay, how can I pitch this in the shortest amount possible? So what you gave me, Kendra, and I'm giving this long answer here, what you gave me was a pitch that isn't really doing service to the actual script. So that's why when we read the script, we're like, oh my God, this is actually interesting. And this actually this is very multifaceted. So now this makes sense, right? I don't know what the pitch would be, honestly. I can't give you an answer to that because it is a very beautiful, complex story. But I just wanted to give you an example of when you guys work on these business plans, which some of you are working on, and when you work on your own stuff, put a different hat on with the pitch. On the pitch, you put the hat on. How would I buy this? What is the story I want to see to buy this? And then the script is what the script is. Okay. Obviously, they can't be totally different, but you're selling a Ferrari-looking thing, and inside is a beautiful, complex motor. If that makes any sense. This goes specifically for low-budgeted movies, because low-budget movies have a tendency to either be off-genre, or be quirky, or be something different, because they want to stand out. And that's good for them. They want to stand out. But there we have to really be careful not to pitch something that sounds confusing, too artsy, or unrelatable. Does that make sense? So for the low budget movies, it's even harder to put a pitch together that grabs you right away. So because it needs to not only be something that they like buying, but it also needs to be something that is unique because it's a $2 million picture. Does that make sense? I talked a lot. Oh, PPM. Let's talk about PPM real quick. We're actually going to talk about this in the presentation that I have prepared for you guys. PPMs are used for investors in the US. You don't really use it outside the US. It's a product placement, no, it's not. Yeah, hold on. Is it product placement memorandum? Yeah, I think it's I've never used one, honestly, because my money comes from Europe. But this is something that lawyers put together or investment firms put together. And it's a boilerplate document that has to be boilerplate because it follows the rules of the Security and Exchange Commission, so the SEC. And it's a very boring piece of paper. And investors are used to seeing it and they know it's boring. So it kind of goes with your pitch deck. It is just something to protect you from lawsuits. If you are approaching local investors, you can use it to approach accredited investors. I don't know if we got to the module yet where I'm explaining the different kinds of investors, accredited, non-accredited way, who you can approach, who you cannot approach. It'll come up in a module if you haven't seen it yet. There are different kinds of investors that are approached a certain way. And the PPM is one of those elements that you use to approach an investor. And it's basically something you would use in the US. And it's something where you use the boilerplate, but then you put your heart of your business plan into the business description, which is a very small portion of it. Everything else is boilerplate. And any lawyer who does these PPMs, they know it's boilerplate, and all they do is put in your business information. And then you still have to attach, obviously, your calculations, your revenue projections, but it's not part of the PPM. It's also a separate thing. The PPM kind of sums it up together as in, here's what we're doing per the law, the SEC. Here's a little bit about the heart of the project and why we're doing it. Here's a little bit about how much money we're going to make and how much money we want from you and what you can make with it. And obviously we have a huge disclaimer in there that you can lose it all and that you make zero money. So all this is in a PPM. I can probably dig one out from you from one of the projects that I have attempted to do with the PPM and send it to everyone, just so you see what they look like. But that's how they're used. Who asked me the PPM question? Celeste, does that answer your question? Quickly. Private placement memorandum, send you can. This is what I didn't have enough coffee at this point.
Yeah, thank you. And then are those pretty expensive to get drawn up? I've heard that they can be a little bit of a.
I've paid as low as 5,000 and as high as 30,000.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you want, I have a lawyer that I work with who does these, and he's pretty inexpensive. So I can give you information if you like.
That would be great. Yeah, it's just something to budget for in the development phase that I anticipate. So.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Of course. Jeanette, if we use foreign investors, you don't need PPMs for foreign investors, only for the US, correct? Yes, Jessica. Wait, until you, well, who's John Cones? You'll learn more about PPMs than you ever want to know. Okay, maybe that's another teacher. Yeah, PPMs is, yes, it's good to probably take that class and learn all about PPMs, but a good lawyer can explain to you in probably an hour what is important to know about them, how they're being handled by broker firms, because some states require you to have licensing in certain states. So you can't just send them willy-nilly. There are limits also to how much money you can raise with the PPM. I think the limit right now is $5 million, if I'm not mistaken. But all that stuff is actually on the SEC website, SEC website, which I gave you guys a link to in one of the modules. When I talk about the PPM in the module, you get a link that leads you to a place where you have all the information from the SEC about what a PPM is and how to structure it, because the laws are changing all the time. They're changing the amounts, they're changing how to apply it, they're changing their definitions. So it's good to look at the website and just get a basic understanding. And calling a lawyer is always, the best thing to do that. How would a producer shopping agreement usually cost with an attorney? Nuno, what do you mean by producer shopping agreement? What does that mean exactly?
So it's instead of the option, if you're having an agreement with, let's say, whoever has the IP to be able to shop it to get into development or agreement.
It's basically a co-production agreement.
Yeah. How much does that usually cost to get it done through an attorney instead of just, because I've seen a lot of sites that have.
I mean, I can send you a template to start with that I use. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It shouldn't be much. If they use 3 hours to put this together, let's say it's a lawyer that's $100 an hour, maybe $2,000 max. I mean, then again, I don't know who you're calling. Trust me, I've worked with lawyers that ate my hair off my head. So there are different kinds. Again, if you guys want a lawyer that is feasible, who I send a lot of my students to, who's not costing an arm and a leg, who's very knowledgeable, I'm happy to give you a recommendation for someone. I've actually two, and then you can just see who you vibe better with and who works with you better, because sometimes it's also a personality thing. One is very laid back, a very laid back guy, and the other one is like a litigation attorney, which, you know, is the kind you want because they keep you safe. I like litigation attorneys. So yeah, I'll send you some information on that. Let me just make a note what I need to do. So I'm going to send a co-production agreement to you, Nuno. Yes.
Yeah, shopping agreement.
I'm going to send you a template. Let me just make a quick note for myself here. So co-pro to Nuno. It's basically just to sharing the rights. And then PPM example was set.
Actually, it's not for rights because it's not an option, but I'll send you the link from this one legal website in order, like if you get it picked for development, the owner of the IP, like the author of the book, would be able to negotiate directly with the production company or studio, and you as a producer.
Well, if you're talking about what you're describing then is basically just an authorization for you to represent the project. So it's basically you have the rights to represent the IP to other places. So is that kind of shopping agreement that you're talking about?
Yeah, a producer
okay.
shopping
That
agreement.
can theoretically be done in an email. You don't need an agreement for that, I feel. So let's say you have, in your example, let's say you have someone who wrote a book and you say, I'd like to see if I can get this made into a TV show, for example. Would you give me authorization to inquire about the possibility of making this happen, which would obviously be non-exclusive?
Yes.
Are you looking for something non-exclusive?
No, it's definitely exclusive, but I just want to make sure that they know that this is, you know what I mean? Even though I know this person, it's like I want to have that agreement there, so they know that we are doing this like seriously.
Yeah. I would do it simply with a language, maybe like a letter of, letter of memorandum. Something that basically says this is what we're doing. I am taking the IP, I will shop it, you give me the right to shop it exclusively for a year without payment. And at the end of the year, we will negotiate in good faith based on industry standard terms, a purchase price, and maybe an option. But you need to put in something. I mean, if you can put in money, that would be helpful, because here's the trick with these things. If you have a shopping agreement, just play this out, it's exclusive, and you get Netflix to say yes, and say we're doing this with you, and now you have to go back to the rights owner and say, but guess what, Netflix is going to want to do it. The likelihood of that deal becoming expensive is very high. You know? So sometimes it's better to say exclusivity, shopping, yes, I'm not paying you anything right now, but if I pay you, when I pay you, here's how much I would be paying you. If you can put some numbers down, that would be helpful. You don't have to, but just know that you might face headaches later. If you can put some numbers down early on in this letter kind of thing, just say I would be purchasing the rights for this price, and if I option it beforehand, the option would be this price for this time. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. I want to just have something.
You want to just have something now, you want to deal with the headache later?
Yeah, everybody I know was like, get a screenwriter knows, like, please just get a producer's agreement. They're like, just so you work in good faith. And
I'll help you with that. We'll work on something together.
Thank you.
It's just really it's basically just a letter of intent or a letter of memorandum. You don't want to blow this out in a big agreement and pay a lawyer $5,000 to do it or something. This is silly. Yeah, we can work on this. You can send me an email with the specific stuff, and then I'll just put something in an email for you. And then you can still talk to a lawyer about it, because I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give you legal advice, just to be sure. But this is what I do when I do these shopping agreements. I usually put in some numbers, but I understand if you want to cross that bridge later.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else, any questions? Am I missing something? Let me see here. In the chat, I'm not seeing anything. All right, I think we can start with the session. Yay! Let me try to share my screen. Okay, I think it's this screen that I'm sharing. Can you guys see a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start. So we're gonna do some essentials for the next two models. And again, it's only things I want to alert you to be aware of and explain a little bit of what's to come so that you kind of understand what the essence is of the next two modules. Some of it we talked about. I'm just going to dive into some things a little deeper, and then we're going to do the midterm question 2, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. So let's first go into this lovely thing. By the way, I'm going to obviously send you this PowerPoint, so you don't have to take notes or anything. We talked about the different sources of financing. We had a quick conversation at some point about why these people give you money and what their own profit component is. It is important to understand what the other side wants in order for you to close a deal, number one, but also to get a deal that is fair for you and fair for them. So when we look at what these different sources are requiring from you, and if you have an understanding of that, it's going to be much easier for you to do a deal with them because you now understand where they're coming from, you understand what you should be facing, you understand the risk they're taking, and you can argue from that point of knowledge. So when we look at a bank, the bank will first and foremost look at your sales agent. So as I mentioned, I think one time before, if you have a sales agent who is not bankable, you won't get anywhere. So it is important to contact the banks early on, like if you work with Comerica or you work with Union Bank or you work with East West or you work with Mercantile. All these banks do these loans that you're learning about here, right? Some do more gap, some do no gap, some do less gap. Gap financing is usually where they are different, but everything else is pretty much the same. The bank will look at your sales agent and then they look at your collateral. Collateral means what are the sales estimates telling them from this sales agent? What is already been pre-sold? A bank will likely not give you money for a project that has no pre-sales because the bank, like an investor, would like to see that the market is taking on this project in a way that makes sense. So the market is responding to it by signaling we're pre-buying. So pre-sales are a requirement as part of the collateral from any bank, and it's usually about 2 or 3 territories. Just keep that in mind. So collateral is important for them, but of course it's also important how much money they're making. So they're obviously making an interest, and it's usually an interest that is combined between an interest for the gap loan, which is a loan that has no actual contracts against it, and the pre-sale loan, which is the loan that has your actual distribution contracts against it. So the loan that has the distribution contracts against it will have a lower interest than your gap loan. And in the end of the day, you'll see a term sheet that will point out this is how much money we're giving you in interest for this portion of the loan, or we're charging, I should say, and this is how much money we're charging you for that portion of the loan. Some banks will give you what's called a blended rate, where they take both rates, they apply it across the board, which is okay. Banks are not in the business of taking risks. So they will look at your project and saying, does it have pre-sales? Is the sales agent strong? Does the collateral make sense? Now we're feeling comfortable because they don't want to take risks. So these 3 elements are important to them. Their loans are usually short-term. So that means they're between 1 and 2 years. And it's important for you to know because if you don't pay back the loan between 1 and 2 years, they're likely to foreclose on your movie and then they're going to own the movie. You don't want that. So default should not really be an option. I have done over 40 projects. I've never not paid back my bank, even with the shittiest little movie I made, which I'm not going to tell you what it is. Not even on my IMDb, but I make shitty movies too. So the loans, the bank loans, because they recoup in first position, they'll always be paid back because the bank will make sure that the loan they'll give you is one that they don't take any risk. So the likelihood of you not paying the bank back is very low. But if you really deliver a very bad movie, you could face this. You know, it is possible. It has been seen that the bank's not being paid back, but it's rare. Now the investor is going to look at the collateral that the bank took and wants to make sure that there is sufficient collateral. So when the bank does the gap loan, they will take all your unsold rights and say, we're going to hold on to them. And we're going to hold on to all of them. And no one was going to tap with their fingers into those unsold rights until we are paid back. But the investor obviously knows while the bank holds on to their collateral and will recoup out of it first, the amount that they're recouping is still leaving me, the investor, enough collateral to get repaid. So they want to make sure that they have sufficient collateral after the bank loan is repaid. So they look at the collateral and say, okay, these are the rights we have here. This is what's been pre-sold. This is what's left. And of what's left, this is how much the bank is going to take away. So what is left for me that I can make money with? So that's what the investor is going to look like. And they want to see that there is an upside for them. And the upside is usually defined through the domestic, because domestic is not really something the bank will look at, which is why they don't even consider it in their collateral. So the investor says, I'm going to believe this movie is going to do some kind of money in the US, and that is what I bet on with my upside. So the upside in many cases for investors is the US market. Given it's volatile, the investor understands they might not have an upside, it might never be sold in the US, but given all the platforms that we have right now and given all the buyers we have right now, the likelihood of the US selling in some shape or form is going to be there. So it's not a collateral that the bank will put their hands on because they don't care about the US, so the investor can use it as part of their collateral. The investor will obviously charge a premium in the back end, and that's part of their recoupment. So when we do a business plan and we figure out how much is the ROI, return of investment percentage, for an investor, we look at how much premium are we paying them and how much profit are we paying them. And we'll take that number and we add it to the, we add it in relation to the budget, to the money that they paid, not the budget. And then we see how much money they made. So as an example, let's say an investor gives you $1 million. The premium would be $200, and let's say your back end for this movie would be another $200, just as an example. So now the premium and the back end is $400,000. The investor gave you $1 million. So now he made 40% profit on his money because he's getting the $1 million back first, and then he made another 40% profit. So that's how you calculate your ROI. So you need those two numbers, the premium and the back end, to then run them against the investment, create a relation, have a percentage, and that will tell you how much money the investor makes total. So that's important for your business plan to know. The investor will always look at your selling points. And your selling point with every project is your director or your cast. The director is more important when you don't have strong cast. The cast can sometimes, if it's strong, take away the importance of the director. So for example, I did a movie with Jason Statham and Mickey Rourke and some other bunch of people. The director was a guy from Jordan who only spoke Russian. Don't even remind me of how that went down on set. We needed a translator all the time, and had never done a movie. He only did a short film that I bought the rights from and did this movie based on. So here I am, an idiot, using a first-time director, but I was based it on a short film, and the cast was really responding to the script. So the cast that we had was so strong that the director really wasn't carrying too much weight. And if you look at what the director made afterwards, you'll notice he never made another Hollywood movie because he doesn't know how to. In this case, the movie came out okay, and I'm not going to say it's a fantastic, amazing movie. It came out okay, but it was very, very well sold because of the cast. So the pre-sales were very strong. I think we pre-sold 80% of the budget, even at a time where it was difficult to do pre-sales. So if you put your project together, you have the choice of leveling out where you want to focus your value proposition. Are you going to focus on the director because it might be a genre piece? It's a horror movie and you want to use a director that's very strong in the genre? Or are you going to say, I really want this first-time director, I really believe in this guy. He did this great short movie that I really like. And then you have to convince your cast to like him as much as you do. That's going to be the job then. And that's important for the investor. There is another thing you can do with investors, which is why is there like a yellow thing there? That's weird. I don't know how that got there. Sorry about that. If you can do something where you can talk to your bank and say, listen, I want you to release some of the territories out of your collateral, and I want you to release the small territories like China, Taiwan, Israel, small, tiny territories that have no meaning to you. I want you to release them out of the collateral. I want to assign them to my investor as a first recoupment position. So what happens now is that the investor recoups parallel with the bank on these territories that you excluded. And that's going to help you. And I've done this pretty much on every movie because the bank is like, we don't need these small ones. You can have them. Well, for me, they're great because I can start paying my investor immediately, and investors love that. So I get a little bit of money from China. I get a little bit of money from Taiwan. I get a little bit of money from North Korea. I get like little places where the bank would never even, they would give me zero for these territories. So that's what I'm talking about when I say advantageous recoupment. You create what is called a corridor, a recoupment corridor for your investor with these tiny, 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 tiny territories that you talk the bank into releasing for you. So that's something to keep in mind because it will help you in your negotiation with your investor. And you're going to be surprised how quickly these tiny territories pay and how they add up. Because these tiny territories can add up to a significant amount of money. It might be a third of your investment already right there. So this is something to think about. Now, as a producer, when you look at your profitability, you're obviously looking at what are my finance elements? Where's my upside? How do I deal with my back end? So obviously you want to make sure you have an okay producer fee in the budget, but in many cases, you can only charge so much. So it is often the case that you are hoping to make some money in the back. And I have to tell you honestly, on my movies, I did not always make any back end. It is not a normal thing to make back end. So just keep that in mind. You have to watch what you do. And in the early movies that I did really bad deals where I never even got to a back end because I didn't know what I was doing. You are so much ahead of the curve right now knowing all this because I didn't know it. So those were the times when I didn't apply what I know now, when I didn't make back end. Once I learned how this whole stuff works, I'm actually now seeing back end. And it's beautiful because the other day I got a check from Sony for a movie that I made 10 years ago, $100,000. So it's a great thing to be able to do that. So backends are possible if you apply the things that you're learning here. But I also have to warn you and say, it's not always actually happening because it really depends on how well your movie sells and how good your sales agent is. So your job is to make sure that you get to backend by using finance sources that don't take away from your backend. And by using finance sources that give you deals that are not being too harsh on your budget. So try to stay away from people that want fees out of the budget. Like some financiers were going to ask you for executive producer fees. They'll ask you for paying their legal fees. You can have a negotiation about that. The answer should always start with no, but then you can say, okay, fine, I'll give you a co-EP and a little credit and a little fee, but I really can't afford to pay much. And your good out is always going to be the bond company. If you have a bond company, you can always use it to support your position and saying, the bond company is not going to let me add more in the producer pool. I cannot increase the budget by adding your fees because the movie is not going to be bondable. I'm already on the bare bones that the bond company is going to let me apply for this budget. So use the bond company as your scapegoat, so to speak, if someone gets pushy with charging you a lot on the budget. So your job is to keep people out of your budget so that you can keep it feasible. And your upside is also the upside that the investor has because you're dealing with collateral that's going to be available at the end. And that's going to probably be anything that's available after everything was sold. So that is the upside. So you do want to make sure that you always keep in mind, what can I do with this domestically? What is my best approach domestically? And maybe talk to a talent agent early on and saying, do you want to handle this movie domestically? And what is your strategy? What are you suggesting? What do you think how much money this movie can make? So have an early conversation with the talent agent. Maybe it's someone you're putting the package together with on how they would handle domestic for you, because that's going to be also where your upside is. Now, when you look at the whole cake from the side of the sales agent, the sales agents, they're great people, but they are sales agents. So they're going to sell you on them as well. So what you need to know is you're going to work with someone who's bankable. You're going to work with someone who allows a collection agent, and you're going to work with someone who is going to give you a performance clause in connection to their sales estimates. So again, we talked about this briefly, but you're going to basically say to them, thank you for your sales agents, sales estimates that show me an ask price and a take price. And on the take price, I'd like you to tell me when you think you can make that money. Give me a time frame. Give me some milestones. Have them give you the milestones. That way you know what to expect from a sales agent by a certain time. And you can translate that to your investor and saying, sales agent expect to be getting us $1 million by then, getting us another $1 million by then, which should take part of your investment out, getting us another $1 million by then, which should take you out and give you premium. So you can use that conversation also with your investor. So it's good to have a milestone conversation with the sales agent, but let them give you their time frame. Don't push them in saying, I need everything back in the first 2 years, because you don't want to lose a good sales agent either. You want to give them the room to be able to perform, but you don't want to give them too much room and then they sit on your movie and nothing's happening. So this conversation needs to be had. There will be sales agents, they'll tell you, we don't do performance clauses. And you want to wonder why that is. A normal sales agent would stand behind their numbers and would say, yes, we can do these numbers and we'll think we can probably do this much by then. We can do pre-sales by then. We might need 3 markets to do pre-sales. They'll tell you what they think they can do by when they can do it. And that's an important conversation to be had. Now, the sales agent will always ask for high fees, obviously. They ask for a high sales fee. They ask for a high distribution fee. Your job is to keep that down. If the movie is in the 2 million range, like your example earlier, you're going to probably be somewhere around 20 to 25% in sales agency fees, and you're going to be somewhere around 5% for expenses. If the movie is higher, the budget is higher, that sales fee should go down. So just keep that in mind when you have negotiations with them. If the sales agent gives you a minimum guarantee, meaning they give you an advance because they really believe in your movie, the sales fee could go up to all the way like 35% because they're now taking a risk. And that's okay. You can still pay that and you're still going to be okay. But I would say the 35% should only be applicable during the period during which they are actually recouping the money that they gave you, and then it should fall back to 25. So that's a conversation you want to have with the sales agent. When they're looking at contract terms, they're going to ask for long contracts, meaning sometimes even 15 years or more. I would always advise you to try to stay under 7 to 10 years, maybe even 5 years. The shorter the term is, the better it is for you, because you can manage the progress. If a sales agent has the movie for a long time and is not performing, you have no way of getting the movie back. It's going to be harder. Even with performance clauses, you don't want to have to sue the guy. It's expensive, lawsuits in California. Who needs this? So try to give yourself a second layer of security by keeping the term for the sales agency agreement as short as you can make it. They like projects that are easy and fast to sell. What that means is they like projects that have sales elements like cast or easy genres or a strong director. So like your investor, like yourself, these are the elements you should be gearing toward attaching. And when you have a good story, you will get those elements. If you have something unique, people will want to be in it, especially now where people are so story conscious and they're so driven by, the various places where content can go. So again, I'm sorry for this yellow thing. I don't know how it got there. I think I made a little mistake earlier. Now, when we talk about a mezzanine lender, the mezzanine lender falls somewhere between the equity and the bank as we go about, what's their profitability profile. They obviously want to see enough collateral available for them. That means enough collateral having been left by the bank. They don't care what the equity collateral is, because after the bank is done, the mezzanine is taken the collateral. Sometimes this could be a problem for your equity lender. Equity might not always like seeing a mezzanine lender in front of them. So I always say, if you do a mezzanine lender, only do it if you don't have enough equity. If it's an issue, if the equity is lower and you just can't get enough and you have a mezzanine lender offering you money. Obviously you want to get the movie financed, so that's when you take it. Other than that, it is a risky thing, and here is why. The mezzanine lender has the same right than the bank in foreclosing on your movie. And the risk of the mezzanine not being paid back is not insufficient. So I've actually lost one movie to a mezzanine lender because I got the bank out, but the mezzanine didn't get out in time. So I made the mistake of keeping the term for the mezzanine lender too short. And that gave him the window to take over my movie because I wasn't paying. By now, of course, it's paid off, but by now the movie is gone. So the trick here is when you do a mezzanine loan, make it a long term and include the option to divert the mezzanine into equity so that they cannot foreclose on your movie. So they convert the loan into becoming an equity lender. That will help you in not losing your movie. Their collateral is obviously important. They also are an entity that looks at the upside, meaning the US, and they obviously look at the project. So they want projects that have, you know, significance in cast and director components. They do obviously want a fast recoupment, but your job is to allow a longer period here. So while they want to recoup fast, you're going to push back and saying, I need more time. I need you to give me 5 years at minimum to pay you back. That's kind of a conversation you should be having with them.
Professor, I have a question regarding the
Sure,
mezzanine
Gloria.
lender. Hi. How is the interest like charged on a mezzanine loan? Would it be like as long as it takes for it to get paid off, or is it like within 3 years and then after that?
Here's what can happen. Good question. When you say, let's say you have a mezzanine loan for 5 years, it could be that you pay 15% per year for 5 years. This could be the case, which is not great. But and mezzanine loans are expensive. So you're probably looking at that kind of interest rate between 10 and 15%. So that's another thing why it's not ideal to have this loan, because it's actually not a cheap loan to have. And it's sometimes even more expensive than equity. I only used it one time, and I fell flat on my face the one time I used it, simply because it has all the risk components. For me as a producer, it has risk components. So you would be paying 15% every year. So if you have a mezzanine lender giving you $1 million, you pay $150,000 every year. So if you just count the equity, if you just count the interest times 5, you're already at like 750. I mean, it's a lot of interest for $1 million loan. And I had to face that too. So not great. But you do need the time. That's the problem. You want the time in case the loan is not paid back. You do have obviously the option to put a prepayment option in there, so that, and you should obviously stay away from prepayment penalties. So your agreement should include that you have the option to pay him back earlier, which would be ideal because then you don't have to pay the high interest, but you don't know if that's actually going to happen. So this mezzanine loan is something I really need to say you should be only using if your equity doesn't come in at the level you want it to come in. Gloria, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Great. Oh, Ari asked actually a good question. What penalties are applicable for the sales agent to not hit the milestone? It's basically the exit of the contract. So what the milestone means is it gives you an option to say, if you don't hit those milestones, this contract is going to be terminated. That's the penalty. You give him a cure period of, let's say, a month or so, or 30 days to cure the default. Or maybe you give him 2 months, but the exit would be, the penalty would be the exit of the contract. Unless you want to negotiate something else, which you're obviously open to do. But in my cases, when I use these milestones, I basically say to the sales agent, if you don't hit your own numbers, it basically means you're either not doing a good job or you lie to me, one or the other. I mean, it could be that my movie just sucks, then there's that. But if the first two are applicable and my movie is okay, then why would you want to stay in contract with that person? So that's my answer to Ari. Ari, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And regarding the US, you know, there isn't really a way to estimate the US, which is why the banks zero the estimates for the US. They basically say for us, the US is 0 because no one knows what the US is actually is going to actually mean. When I do business plans, I keep my US between 25 and 35% because in my business plan, of course, for me personally, I can use an estimate that I feel comfortable with. So you can, in your business plan, do the same thing. And it's usually, if you're between 25 and 35%, you're in the range of what could be doable, I should say, unless your movie sucks, in which case it's a whole different conversation. But that is a normal number to put into any business plan where no one's going to look at you going, are you insane? This is never going to happen. So just like, you know, you can use that number. The bank and the mezzanine lender will likely not use that number. The mezzanine lender is going to have in their own mind whatever they think the US is worth, and they're not going to ask you. They're going to do their own due diligence, and the bank is just going to say, we don't care, because for us, we don't bank the US estimates. We don't care how much you estimated for that. Does that answer the question? Okay, moving on. Yes, perfect. So when we talk about the tax credit lender, what is his deal? The deal is that he's going to look at the state or the country that he's lending you money for. So in his mind, he's going to say, okay, New York, how is New York doing these days? Are they changing their rules again? Are they paying people back? Are there issues? So they are very much in tune with all the various changes that happen in the incentive regions in the US and outside of the US. And based on their analysis of the region, they will offer you a deal or not. In many cases, their analysis will reflect into the fees that you're going to have to pay them in order to cash flow your tax incentive in advance or your production incentive. Sometimes it's a grant, sometimes it's just a subsidy, sometimes it's a tax incentive. So they'll tell you what their analysis is for the region that you're shooting in, if they want to give you money, and then how much they're going to charge you for it. So the tax lender is, I should call it incentive lender, really, to be truthful, is going to do their own due diligence on the region and then get back to you with what they feel a fair deal would look like. And it could be that you pay as high as 20%, 25% as a fee for a region that the tax incentive lender or production incentive lender feels shaky about or hasn't done a deal in yet. So that's what you need to be aware of. The incentive lender always looks at states and countries that will pay them back fast. So as we go back to the New York example, the New York changed, they might have changed this back, but they did change their repayment scheduling in a way that they paid back the incentive amount over 5 years, which is not great for an incentive lender because they have to wait 5 years to get their money back. They don't like that. In Europe, for example, they pay you as you go. So the incentive lenders like that because they literally get paid 5 minutes after they gave you the money, which is great. And in some cases, you don't even need an incentive lender because they pay you as you go. I sometimes just do it because the bond company wants me to, or the bond company doesn't accept the local incentive rules and they want the money to be in escrow before. There are certain situations where I just need a lender, even in territories that pay me as I go. Like when I did the movie in South Africa has a tax incentive, UK has a tax incentive, and in both cases I needed a lender, even though in both cases they do pay you kind of as you go. At least they did at that time, might have changed now. So it helps you to know how the incentive works in relation to repayment, to then go back to the incentive lender and negotiate that fee down. Because if the repayment is done quick, the risk for the incentive lender is reduced. That should reflect in the fee that you're paying them and it should go down. When we talk about these in-kind services, you have to think about why would any post service, for example, or any visual effects service give me money or defer. The reason why they do this, and I mentioned this before, is there are so many companies like this and they want to lock your movie into their facility. So what that means for you is you can negotiate, in many cases it's a deferment, it's not an incentive that you don't have to pay back. You do have to pay it back, you just have to pay it back out of the recoupment schedule. And the negotiation base here is how much do you pay them as a premium for deferring some of their fee. The normal range is about 10%. You shouldn't pay more than 10. You also have to watch their pricing because sometimes what happens is if they defer, they increase their pricing on the post budget for you. So you need to have quotes and push back on some of the pricing that they might give you on your post-production or visual effects work and say, let's not go overboard here. I know you're deferring some of your fee, but that doesn't mean you can jack up the prices and basically make it up by making me pay you more. So that's something to think about. That's probably something, you know, an incentive, a post-service or VFX service would try to attempt. The good thing about this is they want to create a relationship with you that is ongoing. So you can have an open exchange with them about, you know, dude, this is how post should be. Don't gouge me, and I need you to defer 50% of your fees because then we can close the movie, and it would be great if you could do that. So asking for 50% deferment is not unusual. Sticking to the 10% premium on that deferment amount is not unusual, and trying to keep the prices in a normal range would be the job that you would have. and they would have to agree to that. So when we talk about the music investment, this is a collateral corridor that you're basically giving away. Your music royalties will no longer be part of your recoupment. If you wouldn't do this deal, you would also get music royalties, which would go into the waterfall with the collection agent, and you would then pay everyone out of that. Sometimes it's not worth it, honestly, to even go there. And sometimes you need that extra 100,000 or 200,000 because you just have to fill a little hole here. That's money. I've taken it on every project that I do because I don't, frankly, I don't care about music royalties, but that's just me. It's personal opinion. So you do whatever works for you. And maybe you are actually a composer and you're like, I'm not doing this. Are you insane? They're taking all my publishing. So, it is whatever the preference is. But the job here would be to get as much money out of them as you can, because you're giving away the rights in perpetuity, meaning forever. So your job is to say, yes, okay, the music budget I have is 50,000, but I kind of want a little more because I feel the music royalty here is worth more because a lot of original music is going to be used in this movie. So that's kind of the negotiation that you can have with them and saying, we're creating all the songs, you will have all the royalty for all this music. 80% of the movie is now music or musiced up or composed, and that's a lot of royalties for you. So that's a conversation you would be having with them. You guys, any questions about this? Okay, good. Moving on. We have, people go back and forth about how do you actually define profits. And it's a very important thing for you to remember that that definition has to be very specific. Because if it's not specific, you won't see any profit, that is. In theory, profits is basically just gross revenues minus all expenses. That's the theoretical definition. But the expenses, in my view, need to be spelled out. Exactly, what are they? It's in your benefit to do that. So you would say expenses like delivery elements, which would cover the distribution. Trailers, if we have to pay for them. Usually you don't, they're in the budget, but if you have to, if they become part of your distribution cost. A bank loan, a specific mezzanine premium. So you would specify it in saying distribution fees defined as delivery elements attached to the sales agency agreement, for example. That would basically cover all your distribution expenses. The second could be any costs related to financing, specifically mezzanine lending, bank lending, and equity. And then you can say another expense would be deferments, which are not, which are defined because by the time you're doing all this, you know your numbers. So if you don't know the numbers, you would define it in the theoretical matter by saying, here are the distribution expense definitions, the delivery schedule that we get from the sales agent. Here's my financial expense component, my bank loan, my mezzanine loan, my equity lender, and related cost. Here's all the other stuff, deferments, and that's it. Nothing else. If you have P&A, obviously that needs to be adjusted. And then if you have P&A, if you have a P&A investor, you cap that. You say P&A up to the number of 5 million with the premium of 25%. So you define what that is. So the more specific you can be in what is being deducted, the better. So that's why it's important when you look at your profit definition as what is allowed to be deducted, because everything else that is not in there goes to you. So that's something to really remember. Any questions about this? I don't know why there's a yellow thing again. Weird. No questions? All right, moving on. So when we put together the waterfall, which is our path to profit, we have to make sure that everyone's in there and in the right ranking. We talked about waterfall ranking before. But the parties, in some parties you don't want in there because you don't want to collude the waterfall either. Because what happens is all these people are going to be in what is called the collection agent management agreement. So if you have a lot of people in an agreement, they all have to agree to stuff. The more people, the more work. So you want to define it to only the people that you really need in that comma agreement. That would be your producers, obviously. If you have deferments, you put the people that have deferments in the comma. The talent is likely going to be in there because they're likely going to get a profit participation, and any service providers that deferred anything. Anyone who gets money, but real money that is defined as what that money is, ideally a number, will go into the comma with that number. So the more specific you are, the better it is. So profit participations are usually percentages. So you can't really define a number, but you can define the percentage. The guilds are going to be in there because they want to make sure that they have their residuals taken care of. Obviously, the investors are in there. The financiers are in there. The banks may or may not be in there. If the bank recoups out of the comma, meaning they want to be having their recoupment account to be a separate account, then they would not be in the comma, which can happen. Bond companies will likely be in there, and of course the sales agent and distributors. No one else should be in your comma. This should be all the parties. So if anyone else says, but I want to be in there because I want to know what's going on, you have to decline. If they don't have a financial interest or entitlement, they should not be in that agreement. So this goes specifically for producers that you add to the mix that are like associate producers or co-EP producers, someone who helped you put it together, but they don't really have a profit participation. You pay them like a small amount in the budget and that's it. Very many times do they want to be in it? And you have to kind of push back because there's no reason for them to be in it. So the less people you have in there, the better it is for you. Now we know that the waterfall describes how and when revenues and expenses are being paid back. We also know that it will, tell us when profits are being hit and how the profits are being distributed. There is something called an instruction letter. Instruction letter is done in addition to the comma, and it has to do with parties. It is going to be referenced, obviously, in the comma as a line. Let's say, for example, Halle Berry, you are going to get 20% of the profits, and you're going to get maybe 1% from a certain territory, let's say, right? Like maybe she wants a waterfall. She really believes that Germany can make a lot of money and she wants to make money directly from Germany. Could be. This detail, if it's this detail, would be done in an instruction letter. It would be summed up in the comma, but the actual detail on how that all goes down would be done in a separate letter, and that's called an instruction letter. So there are certain things that are going to be added to the comma as instructions to get deeper into why this entity has a different kind of recoupment for this situation. That's the only time you would use it. I put together the revenue path for a movie that has a theatrical release here. So I think we talked about this once more. When you have a theatrical released movie, you have money going to the exhibitors, the rest goes to the domestic distributor, who will then charge their fees. The P&A is going to be deducted, and then everything else goes into the collection account. You're going to see here the revenues from foreign coming in. The guilds are usually wanting to be in first position, and then you're going to pay your sales agency fee, your collection agent, and you're going down to the senior bank mezzanine equity deferments. Now, in many cases, the bank is going to move all the way up here just because. They can request this, they can require this, and everyone just has to eat it. So just be aware that this position can go all the way up here. That's the one thing that can happen to you. But this is kind of the main layout, how it applies many, many, many times in a structure when you put a waterfall together. When we talk about the collection agent, I don't know why this yellow thing is there. It's still there. It's weird. We use the collection agent as a sales tool for our investor. And the investors might not know this actually exists. So it is important for you to mention to the investor when you do a business plan, I am using a collection agent, and here's why I'm using a collection agent. It's going to be totally transparent in relation to what comes in and what goes where when monies are coming in. You will see exactly when you're going to start recouping your money and where we are with the recoupment of the movie and its expenses. You're going to see exactly how much everyone is getting per the contract that's in the comma, but it's actually happening. And for you, the producer, it basically takes the burden away from being an accountant and doing this all yourself, because if the collection agent doesn't do it, you have to do it. You certainly don't want to give the sales agent this job, because, and some people do, by the way. Sales agents are not accountants. They shouldn't be doing this. So it is a sales tool for you with an investor to increase profits and the reality of profits, because using a collection agent will make it impossible for you to take money, because you don't see any money. No money is ever going to send to you until you get your profits. So use it in your business plan, explain to the investor what it is, and it's a very specific thing to our industry, and there's only two collection companies in this industry. One is Freeway and one is Vintage. If you need the information, please email me, I'll send it to you. And they're very specific to our industry, and it's important for you to let your investor know that these are third parties that will also help with taxation, and here is why. Let's say you sell something in Germany. Usually, Germany has a sales tax of nearly 20%. You don't want to be paying that. That's insane. So having an entity, these entities are usually in tax advantage regions like Hungary or wherever you don't pay taxes. Hungary is one where I know, because the collection agent I use is located there, or Holland, also a good one. Because they are in these regions, they will help you with holdback taxes or taxes that would be due when that sale happened. These taxes can be very high depending on what sale you're doing in what country, because every country has a different taxation, and you don't want to be subject to that taxation. So having a collection agent in a tax neutral location will basically help you not paying taxes. So that's a very important argument also to mention to your investor, to say the collection agent is in a tax neutral state or country, and therefore we are not subject to holdback taxes and all kinds of other taxes that you usually would be subject to. I want to quickly talk about slate financing. Slate is anything more than, I would say, 2 or 3 projects. Could be movies, could be TV shows, could be anything that's more than 1. When you put a slate together, you do it on the level of your production company. So let's say you put your production company together, you want someone to finance your production company. You want them to finance the actual entity that you're putting together, like a startup, right? So you have Beautiful Pictures LLC, and Beautiful Pictures LLC is gonna plan to do 5 movies in 2 years. Not unreasonable. The 5 movies are going to be either movies that you already know you're gonna make, or they're going to be fictitious movies that are following certain criteria. They're going to be in the budget ranges of A to Z. They're going to have this and this genre. They're going to use A-level actors in the lead. They're going to use experienced directors. They're going to have at least minimum 70% international sales estimates to be even greenlit by us. So you give your slate definitions, and these definitions become criteria under which you can fund, meaning the investor that invests in your company would then invest into these movies, all or partially, and would know my money will only be used if the slate that we're doing with this company follows these criteria. So it's very important to put very strict criteria on yourself under which you would put these projects together. And again, some you already have, which you can mention, and some you might not know about yet. And you might, as you go through these 2 years, you might find great projects. So putting the slate together, you have to define what the slate is, and you have to run numbers. What would happen if this movie would fill all these boxes, and how would that look like in the end? So what you see with slates is that the diversification of money will also reduce the risk, because if a movie bumps, another one can be better and lift it up. So obviously diversification is a good thing. Now, and investors love this, by the way. However, the reality is you have to put 5 movies together, and you have to fill these criteria. And sometimes things just work out all at once in the period of time that you need it to be working out. So let's say year 1, you're supposed to do 3 movies, and you get only 1 done because the actors that you want are busy. They're working on a Netflix show that takes forever. So the packaging of it takes longer. This is the one thing where I say slates become very they could become headachy for the producer because you have to put all these elements together in a certain amount of time. I personally like slates because I'm a producer who likes to be organized like this, right? And it gives me like push and deadlines and stuff. But it's not everyone's cup of tea. There are producers who say, I don't want to have that burden of having to put all these movies together, and maybe I can and maybe I can't. I don't want to deal with that. So that's the one negative for you as the producers to think about. Delays in packaging can occur. And also, as you package, and if you package too late, you could also face delays in pre-sales, because some of your criteria will also be that you have to reach a certain level of pre-sale to confirm the market demand of your project. And they could be delayed. So now maybe the sales agent is not doing their job, maybe the market has changed, maybe there is COVID going on, maybe there's some other virus that goes viral and things happen and everything goes shit-faced. You don't know. So the timing of things could work against this whole slate structure thing. I still think it is worth attempting if you are up for an organized way of structuring a production company. Any questions? The one thing I want to mention is
sorry, Jeanette.
Oh yeah, Sebastian, go on.
Wanted to ask, how does this work in the TV industry in a way?
In the television industry?
Yeah.
For slates?
Yeah, in that sense, because I mean, I guess it's kind of the same development in the sense of kind of putting a cast together, the packaging, but how would you? I guess, yeah, I don't know if there's anything.
I'll give you an example. When I put my slate together, it has TV projects in there, like a TV series as well as movies. For the TV series, I focus on my showrunner. I don't really focus as much on the cast because the cast is not as relevant for television series. It's great when I have good cast. It usually comes with a good showrunner. But in order for me to sell the series, I need to have a very strong showrunner. And for the series, I have to sell domestic in order for it to have any value in international. So that's the exact opposite, and I'm so glad you're asking this question, than when we put together a movie. Because for the movie, US it may or may not happen. For TV series, it's nearly impossible to put a television series together without having some kind of interest from a domestic buyer. So you would have to put that in if you put it in your slate, you would have to assume a domestic buyer to be applicable, and it would become part of your criteria that you have to have a domestic buyer in order to be able to fund this series with your slate investor. So when you put the development together for a TV show, you talk to the investor and you say, okay, I have this great idea, I have this Bible, I have this great showrunner that's going to write the script, but I need to attach the showrunner first, and it's going to cost me $150,000 to do all the work. But this showrunner is going to also be the one that's going to sell it to ABC or NBC or HBO because they have worked with them. And we know that they're going to be accepting this showrunner because we had preliminary conversations with the network. Or this showrunner already has a deal with a network or an outlet like MGM or whatnot. So the showrunner in this case is your moneymaker. And that's someone you want to attach early on, and what you want an investor to help you attach that person, because it's going to open all kinds of doors. But you need to do a lot of work in not having the showrunner come in too early. It means you have to have a full-fledged Bible. Ideally, you have a draft of a pilot script. And that could be written by any writer that you feel comfortable with, strong enough putting your idea of the series into a pilot. The showrunner is going to probably work with this material and say, I want to change this, I want to put my own take on this. But you have a lot to give them. And it will help you in your position as the creator of the TV show, because it's important that you stay the creator and that credit is not taken away from you, because that's where the heart of your money is. When the network takes the show and they do whatever they want with it and they pay for everything, let's say, they can't kick you off the project. Even if they hire another showrunner, even if they hire another production company, as the creator, you will always be attached to the IP. So that's why it's important for you to flesh out this series idea as much and as detailed as humanly possible, and even provide a pilot script and a layout for all the episodes that are coming for maybe 1 or 2 seasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So in a slate, you would just mention it as a TV show, and for the criteria, you would establish the criteria for the television series and saying it has to have this, this, and this in order for us, the production company with our investors, to put some money in there. So you just add it as one of your projects in the slate. if a slate is financed by a, let's say, a credit facility, there are credit facilities that are bank-like institutions that will give you a line of credit, for lack of a better word, based on a slate that you tell them you're going to be doing. I had this offer once and I actually declined it, and here's why. The money that they were trying to give me had what is called an unused commitment fee connected to it. So even if, imagine this, it would be like $100 million sitting in a bank account, and I would have to pay 0.5%. It was very little, but it was 0.5% of unused commitment fees, which means if I don't use the money while it's sitting there, I'm paying this money. I'm paying this unused commitment fee, which is very scary. Because A, I don't know when I'm going to get to use the money because I have to package, I have to prepare. It takes at least 2 years to put the stuff together. Now I'm paying 2 years worth of 0.5% of $100 million. That's a lot of money. So this unused commitment fee thing is something you should always try to avoid. I wasn't smart enough at the time, and I thought it was a given, and they didn't want, I mean, I did ask them, I can't pay this, and they didn't agree, which is why I declined the deal. Because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to spend this huge amount of money with the projects. I needed either a lesser amount, which they weren't willing to give me because they all want to make money, or I needed the unused commitment fee to be gone, but I can't have it both. So working with credit facilities like that is going to be useful if you don't have to, if you only pay the money you actually use, like you would use on a credit line. When you have a line of credit, you only pay for what you've taken out of the line of credit, and you're not paying for what the line of credit could be given you for. So let's say you have a line of credit of $500,000 that you set up at some point because you own a house and you set up a line of credit for the house, right? As the house was the collateral, let's say. You only pay the money that you take. So if you take $50,000 out of the $500,000 line of credit, that's all you pay interest on. And you usually only pay the interest that's a LIBOR interest, so the base interest. So that is not that much money, and that's okay to pay. Versus a credit line that's given to you where you have to pay for the money whether you use it or not. So that's the difference. Does that make sense?
Completely.
Yeah? So let me see, how likely is a new producer can secure a slate financing? A new producer can secure a slate financing if you have strong projects and if you have partners that have track records. So let's say, for example, you are a new producer with great relationships in your family. There's some friends and family money applicable. You've got to have relationships to some kind of an investor to start off the boat. And they obviously would want you to include someone who has done something before. So let's say you give me a call and say, Jeanette, I want to do this production company, and I want to do a slate, and I want you to help me put it together and be in my team as executives, in my board, let's say. I would say, okay, fine, let's figure out a deal and let's do that. That's how you can, as a beginner, put a slate financing together, because I would give you the advice that an investor would feel comfortable with coming from someone that knows what they're doing and have done this before. But you're gonna have to partner up with someone, doesn't have to be me, it could be anyone who's done this before, that has done this before. So as a new producer, when you put a slate together, you need to combine a board that or have someone in your company as an advisor even that will advise you on how to do it and how to spend the money properly and how to put it together in a way that makes sense. Does that answer your question? COVID, very interesting. COVID obviously threw a wrench into everything. I mean, I was producing a TV show, we had to stop. I just did a deal with an investment firm in New York, giving me money for a slate. They have issues raising the money for me because their investors are on, we don't know. So COVID right now has stopped everything. But as we continue our life and COVID becomes part of our life, which I strongly believe it will, because I don't think it's just gonna go away. I personally believe they're gonna find a vaccine. There's going to be maybe a new strain. We have to deal with something virus related, maybe forever in our future. So I believe that there's going to be new rules that will apply on how the universe is going to work, dealing with this new aspect in our life. I think it's just going to have to merge into something. What that is, no one knows. we all know the world cannot continue to stop, which is what's happening now. It will have to continue. So we're seeing slowly things picking up. When you follow the announcements that Producers Guild are doing, insurance companies are putting together guidelines on how they can insure the production with COVID. So there are things happening now, and I think one of our people in one of the classes is actually a COVID specialist. We should find out who that was and maybe have them give us a little tutorial on how that works. Is the COVID specialist on? If you're there, tell me if you're here. Maybe they're here or not. I forgot the name. I'm going to look them up. I saw it in their entrance survey. So maybe I'll ask them for the next session to give us a little rundown of what that really means, because I think it could be interesting. But in reality, in your business plan, what you would do, you would allow for a COVID paragraph to say delays might be expected because we have to work around this. We will be applicable, obviously, to any insurance requirements. We will be applying safety measures in our productions. That stuff would need to be added in your business plan. I would add another year in your recoupment flow. Just add a year. That it just takes longer for you to put stuff together and to recoup money. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm adding a year on my schedule to just give me some time. So you do it in a way that you say, we're applying everything that we're supposed to apply, we're applying everything that makes us insurable, and we allow for more time. So those are the three things I would adjust in my business plan today, and as I go out into the world and getting my movies funded through my investors. Does that make sense, Kendra? Yeah? All right. So here's what the business plan should entail. When you put the business plan together, you have to think about it being the document that needs to be, on the one hand, very concise, but on the other hand, very informative. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, because I have a tendency to write business plans that are like 50 pages long, and then people go like, no, cut it. So I usually start with the longer one, and then I condense my versions. But when I write a business plan, I need to have a playground, as I call it. I have my playground, I set it all up. Here's my project. I'm describing the project. I'm describing why the project is relevant today. I'm describing the pitch, which is usually too long. I'm describing the characters. I'm describing who I want to cast in the characters. I'm describing my vision. What vision do I have for this? What kind of universe am I creating? I would put the director's vision in. So it all starts larger, and then I kind of condense it. And sometimes, to me personally, it's easier to do it that way. It might not be how you do it, but for me, I start big and then I go small. So what you have to do before you start writing things down is you need to do some research. You need to find out, obviously, the main thing you already have learned in this class on how your financials are put together. But you also want to look at research in relation to other projects that are similar to yours. I think it was Kendra or someone else who said that they're doing it. Was it maybe Jessica? I don't remember. Someone had a comparable project that was more domestic driven, right? And so we talked about what that means for the international sales estimates, and I suggested, reduce the international, put a number in for domestic, and let's see how the numbers play out. So that's how we kind of talked about that. So it is important for you to figure out, what's my audience? How does that reflect with my numbers? Is this a domestic driven project? Is it a foreign driven project? Where am I going with this? So you do research on that, especially when you have comparable projects that show you, like in Kendra's case, that the comparable project was very strong domestic and wasn't so strong international. So you do the research in relation to your project. You obviously research your marketplace. Is it a smaller place? Is it a global place? Is it the festivals? What does that look like in my financial recoupments? It is good to look at locations early on and thinking about, not just from a creative point of view, but also from a financial point of view, and it should be both, ideally. Well, that said, I shot the Sahara in Luxembourg, and there's clearly no Sahara there, but they had a great tax incentive deal. So there is that too. So you figure out, I always start with, where's the most money right now? And then what does it look like there? And can I make this work there? So, but that's just me. For you, it could be like, okay, this movie needs incentives. and where can I go that makes sense, gives me enough incentive, still work visually for my project, and then you work it that way. So there is a little bit of research to be done. I always suggest to go to the website that Entertainment Partners has, because it's so great with all the up-to-date regulations all these states have, because they're changing constantly, to see what's what where right now, and then figure out, is there enough crew there, or do I have to ship everyone over there? And if I have to ship everyone over there, am I really saving money, or is it going to cost me more to actually go there to then get the incentive? So you need to make that math happen too. But there is some research involved, and you should make the research before you put the finance plan together. And if you did the research, you need to explain why you chose this location, because of the financial component and because of the local component, and you explain quickly why. We talked about the vision. It is important, even if you have a period piece, to figure out, why does the story have relevance today? I'm doing a period piece series right now, and it happened in 1930s in Berlin. We're having now 2020 in LA. Why is this relevant? It is relevant because the subject matter of the series is very relevant to what we're going through today. So you have to make the connection, even when it's a period piece, to why you're telling the story today. So if it's something that happened, or if it's something that's based on a life story, or it's something that you feel needs to be told, you need to make the connection to, why am I telling it today? Why is it important? So that's an important factor that a lot of people forget, but the buyers, especially buyers that you go to like network stations, they would want to see what your take is on that. When you do the pitch and you present it, you present your business plan to someone, do some rehearsal at home with friends. Just do a sales pitch at home as you walk them through. Imagine there is an investor and you walk them through your business plan, or imagine you have an executive in front of you and you walk them through the idea. Rehearsing actually helps, finding the right language. And also, maybe if you do it with people that don't know anything about anything, have them ask you questions. I don't understand how this comes about. I don't understand why you're saying this, or this makes no sense to me. Because these are likely the questions you might get from an investor who is maybe not an educated investor. So it's good to rehearse the business plans a little bit. And then when it comes to you having skin in the game, it means that you really need to find money to pay part of the development, so that you show that this story is important for you to make it happen. So going into a business plan saying, I want everyone else to pay everything, is not a good start, and it's usually a little frowned upon. So I would say, do yourself a favor, try to make some money somehow, and at least get the development phase going, so you can show that you started this, that you put everything in motion for it to become reality. Any questions on this? Okay, so I kind of put the business plans here in one page. What I just talked to you about, I basically just put into this one slide. So you see all the separate elements that should be in there. You know, the look of the business plan, because it's a mood book, needs to kind of reflect the colors and mood that you want to create with your project or TV show or film. You have the story summary, the characters, uniqueness of the project is very important. Genre, market, we talked about that. Get some comparable projects in there, but don't necessarily use their numbers. You can compare them as it's going to be like this, and you can mention this is how much numbers, how much money they made. But don't use what they made as a basis for your financial assumptions that you're making. So it's a nice piece of cake to show and say, like Kendra did, we have this project and it made this much money and look how great it is. But then she went back to say, but I'm still going to do what I learned from Jeanette and do my proper finance plan this way. So it's an extra thing to show, but it's not necessary for you to say, I'm going to now use the fact that my big wedding made $300 million and there's a little comedy that cost $3 million, and I'm going to use that money to base my business plan on it. You don't want to do that, if that makes sense. You put a top sheet budget in, obviously it's always just estimated. You have a sales agent. When I say opinion letter, it really means a sales agent giving you a letter saying, here's my sales estimates and here's why I believe in the project. It's not totally necessary, but it's kind of nice to have, especially if it's a sales agent that does a lot of movies like the ones you want to do. If you have brands that you can combine forces with that kind of go along with your mission, with your story mission, it would be great to include those because they also help you with marketing. finance plan, the ROE for the investor. You identify all the risks that you learn about and just spell them out. Here's what can happen. Here's how we mitigate every risk. And then you talk about why you are aligned with the investor. Obviously, you're aligned because you're making money when they're making money, which is in the profit section. So you're not taking any money before because you have a collection agent. This is where the collection agent component comes to play. You have your division for the producer and the director. And then you have bios, short bios of people you feel make sense to elevate your project. You want to put in that you have the rights for the project. If you did a sizzle reel or mood reel or have a website for the project, you would mention it here. Yeah. Here's how you get to investors. First, you have to put the rights in your production entity, which is the LLC that you have created with your, with your project. So let's say you have a production company called Beautiful Pictures LLC, and you make a movie called Kill Me Now. The production entity would create an LLC called Kill Me Now LLC. So for every movie you make, you have a different LLC, which is the single purpose vehicle LLC, only applicable to that movie. And the reason why you do it is if anything goes wrong with that movie and let's say you had it under Beautiful Pictures LLC, all the assets in that company would be affected by whatever is going wrong on that movie. So you don't want that. You want the movie to be ring-fenced in its own movie LLC or in its own TV show LLC. The PPM we talked about is a product, was it product placement memorandum? I already forgot what it was. You put together for investors in the US only. And again, it's a boilerplate thing. I'm gonna dig out one that I did early on. I'm gonna circulate it so you guys see what it is. It's a very boring black and white document. I don't even necessarily understand what it does, but it does work for brokers that work for you. If you want to get more than $5 million from someone, the brokerage firm that you're hiring to do the race for you, they're going to use something like this, and they will likely also generate it themselves. Alternative investment offices. These are who I work with. They're also called family offices. So for example, if you work with a brokerage firm that says to you, we're going to take your little production company that's creating all these movies and we're going to introduce it to certain family offices. Family offices are small investment bubbles, investment firms, where rich families are diversifying their investments. And an alternative investment is a specification for kind of this investment because it's not real estate, it's not oil, it's not some mutual fund situation, it's an alternative investment. It's just the group that it falls into. And these family offices have a allocation in all their investment portfolios where they allocate a certain amount to go to alternative investments. So that's where you are, and that's where you're going to go to brokerage firms and say to them, and there are small brokerage firms that you can actually go online and say, are you guys doing alternative investments? Can I send you a business plan I put together for my company? Would you be interested in looking at that and finding and raising money for me? That's a very real thing. But you need a little more than just one project. This is really applicable for you creating a company that wants to do more than one project. Something to keep in mind. There are tons of online investor portals where you can put your project in, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, all these places. But there are also angel investor portals. I would research them online. Whenever I find one, I always put it on our Film Finance TV site because there's always new coming up and they hold events all the time. I would suggest that you take part of these events. Now, these events might not be specifically for media, but it doesn't matter because there are investors that are looking for alternative investments because that's what these events are about. And they might just like what your idea is. So don't be shy to take part in investor events that are not necessarily just for media. They might just be for tech. They might be for something else. As long as the event is characterized as an event that has a multiple funding investment offering going on. So it's not just an event for a section where you wouldn't fit, but they have other stuff going on. Just make sure that that happens. Then you should just consider, taking part. Right now, everything's online anyway, so it's very convenient. You're also going to definitely work with executive producers who are often companies, production companies that do also finance. So let's say, for example, Annapurna, right? Annapurna is David Ellis's sister's sales agency. They are also known to produce, and they're also known to finance. Annapurna would be a great example for a company where you can go with a very elevated, I say elevated art housey kind of project with A-level component, like an A-level cast. They would look at that and saying, you know what, I think we can finance this, we can also sell it. They would do the whole thing. So that's someone that's a great company for you to consider for an art house, for a high-level art house project. That is in the, I would say, $2 to maybe $5, $7, $8 million range. That's kind of where they landed. And there are companies like this, and you just have to do a little digging in the trades as to who's there, who does what. Participant is another company known for elevated art house, also financing it. That's a company you can contact and send your project to. Maybe direct, maybe through an agency, maybe through a lawyer, whatever you feel makes the most sense. So use all these levels of, access points to get your business plan out and get your pitch deck out, which, by the way, is not necessarily the same. Let's talk about the difference real quick. When you have a pitch deck that's a creative pitch deck that has no financial information, that could be a Bible for a series. A pitch deck could be a mini concept for a reality show or a documentary. It could also just be a creative mood presentation for a movie. This is something you can often use to talk to people like Participant or Annapurna and saying, this is just the idea. We know what the budget is, but we don't really have a finance plan, but here's the idea. We really believe in the idea, and here's the attachments. So for production companies like Participant and Annapurna, you don't really need to figure out all the financials. They just want to see a nice, strong project concept, if that makes sense. So we talked about some of the free money sources before. I'm just going to run through them real quick. Brand integration, the only thing I want to remind you of is that brands you work with today that's going to be an entity you're going to align interest with. So that means you work with them on your script, you work with them on your message, you work with them on special scenes that will be adapted to what they need and what they want. Brands will come into play if you know and when you know who your domestic partner is. So it's a good thing to do with TV series. And it's for when you do film, they're going to say, okay, we're interested, but we can't really give you a deal until we know where it's going domestic. So film sometimes is a little harder to do unless you find a brand that is a worldwide brand and they don't necessarily need to know where it's going domestic, and they're perfectly fine with the sales agent and the distribution strategy you have set out for international. But the one thing they will look at you for is they will want to see a creative alignment with them. So it's not the easy, we're just going to put a Coke bottle in the screen conversation anymore. It is a more involved strategy that you're going to put together with the branding company. When it comes to music investments, we already covered this. I don't think we need to go in there. In-kind services, I think we covered, unless you have questions here. Is anyone in the project, do we have anyone who has questions about their group project that they're working on? Because I got updates from people. I don't really need to go into updates. I thought I would go into updates, but I don't need to.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, please go.
Curious to know for the sales estimates, should we just estimate that based off of our budget, or are you actually okay?
Budget.
It's just estimate it.
You do your budget, you do 70, 75%, whatever works, whatever you feel makes sense for your project.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
I also have a question. I haven't received any communication on the project, and I'm a little nervous just because I'm taking 2 other classes too that has gone by and there hasn't been anything from the group leader.
Okay, here's the thing. The system assigns these group leaders automatically. So I didn't have any say in that. And some of the group leaders just don't have the time or can't be group leaders. So that left the people in the group a little stranded. I have assigned some of the participants that want to do the project 2 other groups so that they can participate if they want to. Just know this is not a mandatory thing. It's just extra credit. So if you don't feel like doing it and if you're busy, you don't have to do it. It's something you can do. It's kind of nice to just do so you know how to put a business plan together and get input from other people. No, do you want to be in a group? Should I assign you somewhere?
I would like to know like exactly where they are in it. Just
let me check real quick where you were. 1 second, please. I want to see what group you're in. I need to quickly go online to figure this out because I don't know by heart who is where. Un momento, per favor. Let me see here. Sorry. Canvas is being stupid. Hold on. I need to get on Canvas.
Group 3.
So what, Nuno, what are the last 3 of your course numbers? What course are you in last?
Last 3 is 230.
Okay, so let me go to that course.
Yeah, and I'm in group 3 and I've
okay, hold on a second.
daily.
Let me see people, group. That should be Shivani. Is Shivani with us? In that group, Shivani's group, I have Danielle, Albert, Cornelia, Janine, Celeste, Jamie. Have any of you heard anything from Shivani? I don't know if Shivani is on here with us. If she is, I have not. Okay, so
we had a group member who never responded, and Nunu is more than welcome to
come into your group.
Yeah.
Elle, let me see where you are. Elle, I think you're in a different course.
Oh, okay. Well, still.
I know, that's so sweet. Hey, you can, that's fine. So Elle, if you want to send Nuno your email, and then Nuno, you can just go into Elle's group and then you just submit it through your Canvas.
Okay.
As long as I have it.
You a message.
Yeah. Is anyone else in this online right now that feel they want to do something but have no leader? Albert.
I'm in the same group too, so I would love to do the assignment, but again.
Albert, do you want to be in a group? I didn't hear the first part. Yes. Okay. Elle, do you want to take him? Okay. So Albert and Nuno, if you please exchange emails with Elle and then just go with her into her group. So what you need to do, Elle, when you connect with those 2, you will probably not be able to connect with them through Canvas. So you have to email them or go on the Zoom, whatever you guys do whenever you meet.
That works perfectly. Our group has an email thread anyway. So
perfect, great. So if you don't mind adding those 2, that would be fantastic. I really appreciate it. Anyone else who's lost? Okay, looks like we got it all. Well, anyone who's watching the recording, you can feel free to send Elle an email. The email is in the chat group. So Elle, good luck! Anyway, thank you guys. What's their question? Is it fair to base estimates from environment?
I'm only exchanging this for math tutoring, you know, just kidding.
Yes, that's fine. Have them work hard for it. Say, by the way, how did you deal with that case study? Since I have you. That's okay. You can do that. I think the question that Jessica had. Jessica, did you need answer to that question still?
We can talk about it offline or after class.
Yeah. It says here, do you want to base your estimates on the budget? Yes. You want to base your estimates, your international sales estimates on your budget for your project. If you have similar project, that's fine, but I wouldn't necessarily use those numbers in your calculation for your finance plan. But the similar projects will tell you if your project is leaning again towards domestic or international, like in Kendra's case, when she used similar projects, she figured out my project is more of a domestic project than an international project, and I need to adjust for that. That's how I would look at those numbers, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, I want that Starbucks. Darn, I need one of those. All right, where were we? I'm going to move you back here, sorry. Okay, let's do number 2. Are we ready? Let's do some midterm shit. Excuse my language this morning. I should be doing this on a recorded session. So this is the question that you have in the midterm. Again, you don't need to write anything down because I'm sending all this to you as a PowerPoint, so you'll be fine. I just want to walk you through it. It's the same. It's killing me softly. $16 million budget. The usual applies. We have 75% international sales estimates. We have 35% pre-sold, for which we get a 20% down payment. So all that we have done before. The domestic is sold for 30% of the budget after the film is finished. We have done that. The sales agent is getting 16% of the sales. The sales agent will not defer the sales fee due on the pre-sales, but only defer the sales fee due on the sales that are done after the bank has recouped. So what that means is in your waterfall, the sales agent is behind the bank for all rights excluding the pre-sales. That's what that means. Collection agent is 1% in the normal precision. Profit participation is 5% for the cast, meaning for the talents and for the director, each 5, so 10 altogether. So when we look at our bank loan, we have some discounting going on. The pre-sales are discounted at 90%, the interest is 5%. The gap loan is the usual 50% of whatever is left. We have a loan fee here of $50,000 that we need to deduct. The incentive is 25%. We're paying a lender 15% of a fee. We're also paying legal and DP. All this is deducted from what we're getting from the incentive lender. We have a mezzanine lender, 10% of the actual production cost. Let's talk about actual production cost. When I say actual production cost, that translates to strike price. The strike price is not your budget. The strike price is your budget minus in-kind service. Your budget is $16 million. Your in-kind service here is $250 and $120. So $370,000 are being deducted, and that will get you your strike price. Anything that relates to the strike price needs to relate to 16 million minus this. Okay, remember this. So when I say actual production cost, these are your actual production costs because the strike price is what you're actually paying. You don't pay deferments right then and there when you're closing. We have brand integration of 500,000. The usual 25% are being deducted, and the rest is equity. So here's how it's going to look like. You see how the strike price is 15,630,000. That's because we deducted $370,000 from the in-kind services, right? And here's just our international. We have 75% from the $16 million, and we have 4.8 million later that will come in, and that will describe our 16,800,000 of gross revenues that we will achieve later when we go into the recoupment. So here's our pre-sales. We have 35% pre-sales, we have 20% down payment, we have a sales fee, and we have available for closing this. So I'm giving you the starting point, and I now need you to go and get me my bank loan and get me all my numbers for my finance elements for this movie. You can do it together. You can talk to each other right here, right now. But I'd like you to do a little bit yourself to take the next steps. Do you need me to send you the, do you want me to send you the assumption page? Why don't you take a picture of this so you have the assumption page? Everyone take a screenshot of the assumption page, please.
Yeah, Professor?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, may I ask a question? I think that there are some lines that aren't the same as the PDF I saw on the midterm page. Like the crowdfunding has 35% admin fee.
Oh, really?
And in the PDF it was 25.
Hold on, what's on the PDF? I don't have the PDF in front of me.
On the PDF, it was for the crowdfunding, it was 25% admin fee.
Yeah.
And here it's 35. Should we consider the PDF or is this the updated?
You go 25. I'm going to change it here. And then,
another.
thank you.
No problem. Another question about the mezzanine. I saw that there was 25,000 legal fees and 25,000 executive producer fees. So I just added a line for EP fee, but here it says 50,000. Is it?
I just added them.
Does matter?
It doesn't matter how you do it.
Okay.
Up to 50,000, it's the same.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So guys, you did a screenshot. So give me the finance elements that we need is the bank loan, the mezzanine, the incentive, the branding, and the equity. So those finance elements we're going to need. Do you still need this sheet, or you want to take a screenshot of this too? Najabat, your group, do you want to send your email through so that they can join you? I saw this on the chat here. So if you want to send your email in the chat so people can also contact you if they're in your class. Put the last 3 of your class number in there as well so that they know if they're in your course. It's probably easier, but otherwise they can just email you. So let's do like 15 minutes and see how far you get with some of the financing elements, and then we'll regroup again. Okay, let me see where we are.
Professor, I have a question in relation to like the project for the finance plans. When we talk about our recruitment schedule, do you want us to put like how long we expect, because you know how you said we'd be adding like a year for most of them? Do we just add it on like an Excel sheet, or do you want it like to just be like screenshots and then add like when we expect to pay back lenders?
I think you should put an Excel sheet together for your financials and put that in your business plan.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
That's cleaner, I think.
Jeanette, I also have a question. So when you're doing the gap loan cap of 20%, you're doing it of the full budget, or you're doing it of strike price?
Yes, Elle. The cap goes to the full budget, not the, yeah, absolutely correct. It's not the strike price.
I think, Jeanette, in the module, the template, it's linking to the strike price.
Well, it mentions, I'm not using I just use the template as a comparison, but it mentions the strike price, but then it functions off the
Exactly.
budget.
Right.
Are we talking about the cap? Yeah, hold on, cap. Let me
Yes, please.
Cap here is 3,200,000. That is linking to, on my template, it goes to the budget. I might have, maybe the template.
Yeah, I think the template.
Don't use the template if it doesn't. That's why I say when I change the templates, sometimes the freaking formulas are still there. So if you just use what I give you, it might be confusing. I might update that template, but we're doing it here together now. So you're gonna use that, but I will update the template. Thank you, Ari, for letting me know.
But
so,
in general, we use the cap. The gap loan cap is based on the full budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. And I will look at that template. It might be that the strike price came later, and it was a template that still had the budget there. It's possible. Does anyone know what we have for the pre-sale cash flow loan yet? Do you have a number for that? Just the pre-sales. Basically, we're taking 90% of our pre-sales. We're deducting the down payment. How much is that? Do you guys know?
Gross?
Yeah.
Oh God, I got 3,920,000.
See, you know how to do this.
I'm not a total dum-dum.
Correct. So then you do the interest from that. And then how much do you end up with, L?
At 3,724,000.
That's correct. You are good. I'm going to have you do the next. How much do you have in collateral available after the pre-sales were sold?
After the pre-sales were sold, I have.
Well, I should say this. What is your gap loan? The gross gap loan. What do you have there?
My gross gap loan, I got 3,200,000 as my gross gap.
You're done. You already know how to do this. I don't even need to. This is silly. So that's correct. And then how much you're deducting from the 3,200,000, you're deducting your interest and your loan fee. So what do you end up with then for the gap loan after you're done?
For my net gap loan, 2,862,000.
Yay. So what's the entire loan if you combine the two net numbers?
6,586,000.
There's your answer. Al did it for you. All right. So just guys, take a look here. This is what the bank loan should be. Okay. So someone tell me how much production incentive we have. Gross.
Is it 3,296,000? 375?
Remember, production incentive. Production incentive is based on the money that you're actually spending, and that would be your strike price. So you would go and do the 25%, and you would make it from the strike price. So if you take 25% from your actual production cost, how much would that be?
3.9 million. 3,907,500.
Perfect. So what is the fee then when we deduct 15% from that?
$586,125.
Great. So here in my incentive, I have, hold on a second. Let me just go look at the definition real quick. 25,000. Okay, we're good. Sorry about that. So then we have $25,000 in fees that we need to deduct. So what, can someone tell me what the net tax incentive amount would be?
3 million.
I'll go for it.
3,296, 375.
Perfect. You guys know how to do this. So next, let's do the crowdfunding. How much crowdfunding do we have? I think it said it here, no? Was it? It was $250,000, right?
Yes, 250,000.
Great. So what is the fee? We're talking about a 25% fee. How much is
62,500.
What are we left with net?
187,500.
Perfect. The music investment? How much was that?
120.
Perfect. Branding? How much was that?
500,000.
What is the fee for the branding? What's the amount?
125.
What are we left with?
I'm sorry, Jeanette. I'm looking at the screenshot of the Kill Me Softly budget you showed earlier, and then what I'm seeing now, and there's a difference. Crowdfunding here says 35% admin fee, and what the picture just
You changed it. It was a typo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 25%. I apologize. I had a typo on here and I changed it, and you probably did the screenshot before I changed it.
Oh, okay.
It was just a typo. But thank you for pointing that. What happened?
Professor.
Hold on, it's gone. Uno momento. Where's my? Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
A question about the branding. In the assumptions in the PDF, it says that we are going to have the entire money at closing. The agency releases all funds at closing. Closing means when we sign it, right?
Correct.
Not when the movie is delivered.
Correct. When we're signing.
Okay.
Closing it's a good question. Just to define the closing is basically a legal definition for the day when all the money comes together, the bond company closes the insurance and all the money starts to be released to the production company in installments that are set by the completion bond company. But the closing is basically the official, we're now starting to release money phase, or day, the closing day actually.
So in step 4, we are going to have the entire money instead of the 50%, the example you gave us before, right? So we have the entire money now in the step 4.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You are. That's a very good point. Can someone tell me how much mezzanine we would have? %10 of our strike price is how much?
1,563,000.
Yes. And then the fees deducted, we have 15%, and then we have some other fees.
Two, three, 4, 4, 5, 0 for interest.
Now, was the fees 50,000 or 45 in the midterm? Can you guys take a look real quick?
It was 50,000 in the midterm.
Okay, got it. So what are we left with for the mezzanine loan?
1278550.
Perfect. Let's go there. Here we go. This is your funding page. Yay. So take a screenshot of that. Does anyone have questions about how we got there? Oh, good. Perfect. So now let's go into recoupment. Okay, so let's start with how much money we have. Here's our money. So let's start paying people back. Can you guys put a little finance, like a little recoupment schedule together and tell me how much we have to pay the collection agent? What is the collection agent getting? 1%, right? Okay, how much is that if we have 15,680,000 in revenues?
$156,800.
Perfect. Great. So next we're paying back our bank loan. We're paying back the gross bank loan.
Wait, could you say that again? Sorry.
It's 156,800 goes to the collection agent. So does anyone know what our gross bank loan is? That we have to pay back? Let's go back to the bank loan. Uno momento. All right, where's the gross bank loan?
$7,120,000.
Perfect. Let's put that in. We're paying that now. So now, next in line, we're paying our sales agent. Does anyone know what the sales agency fees and expenses, 16% is what we're paying, would be that we have to pay right now in this situation? I'm going back to my revenues. 16% is what we're paying. How much would we pay to the agent?
Would that be the 2.5 million?
The 16%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? You're close enough. 2.508,800 because it's 16% of 15,680,000.
Yeah.
Correct. So now we pay the mezzanine back, which was, our mezzanine was $1,563,000. They have a premium of 5%. How much is that? Let's go back to the mezzanine real quick.
78,150.
That is correct. So now we're going to pay our equity back. The equity was $2,590,775 because that's what we were left with. And how much is 20% premium of that?
20% premium, 518,155.
Correct. So we put all the expenses together, we get to this. Is this correct? Do you guys have the same number or something close enough?
I think I got lost somewhere. When you were saying the total gross revenue, you were saying 15,800,868. Is that correct?
Show here. What is the gross revenue? Let me go back. Moment. Let's go back to the gross revenues. The gross revenues are 16,800,000. We are deducting our down payment of 1,120,000 because we used it in our finance plan. So we are left with 15,680,000 that we still get from our distribution revenues. So this number, the 15,680,000, is the number we use to pay everyone back with. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason I have a different number. I can't figure it out.
I have a different equity number.
Okay, so let's go back and check on that.
Yeah, my equity number is different also.
Okay, so
I think the equity number was different because we changed on the junior loan. We changed it from 8% to 15%. So that changed, and this is in cell number D. Oh no, we changed C46 from 8% to 15% because that's what the midterm was, and that threw off our equity in the end.
Right.
Are you getting 2965775?
Hold on, let me go back there.
What cell are you looking at?
D85.
D85.
What? I saw a mistake here. The mezzanine was $50,000 in fees, not 45.
Yeah, I changed that to that as well.
Yeah, let me change that real quick because this is showing me 55. I'm gonna put the new one up. 1 second, please.
Yeah.
So my total gross revenues are 15,867,500. Does anyone else have that?
I have that too.
Can you say it one more time?
15,867,500.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just put this down here. So this is, why is it doing this weird? This looks different. Anyway, can you see these numbers? I just copied them from my Excel after I did. So do you have this equity or do you have a different equity?
I have a different one.
Different.
Let me look at my Excel sheet to make sure we all have the same.
I have 18.54%.
Okay, so you have
that.
more. Okay, so let's see here. Let's put all the expenses together. Uno momento. Actually, I'm going to put this up here because I have an Excel so I can show this to you. So let's do this together. So we have, we all have the same here, yes? We all have the same for the incentive. We all have the same for crowdsourcing and we all have the same for crowdfunding, correct? We are all the same until I think it was here. I'm just gonna make sure that, because I had 45 here before, I'm gonna.
How about the branding?
You have a different number in branding?
Originally, it was divided by 2. It was 50%, so I would get 187, but here it says 375.
Okay, so let's keep the number at not divided by 2. Just put it in here because it's. What does it say in the midterm? Is it divided by 2 or not?
It shouldn't. I think this is right because in the template you had only 50% like delivering, but because in the midterm it's 100% delivering, then it's the full 375.
So if the midterm says we get all the money once, then this is the number we would get.
That's right. Yeah. So that's
the mezzanine loan. Do you guys have the same number for the mezzanine loan? 1,278,550.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So let me now make sure that we get everything together here. So I'm going to take the mezzanine plus.
I think also in the template, the crowdsourcing and the music investments not included in the subtotal.
Well, it can't be because it's. I'm going to leave that out because I'm going to go to the strike price.
Okay.
So if I do, hold on a second. Let me show you what I did here. So these are the items I put together, and then I go from here to the strike price. It should be the strike price, but I'm gonna go from scratch because I want to make sure we have the right number. So I'm going to go and do this plus
net branding. Crowdsourcing.
Crowdfunding and music investment. No, this one goes in, sorry.
Why? Why is that structured?
Because we're reducing our strike price by the 120 and the crowdsourcing 250 because these are in-kind services. So I mean, we could probably add them and then we just go to from the budget. We could do that too. It should be the same number. I'm gonna try both.
Right.
It should be the same number. So these are all our finance elements. Where is my bank loan? Bank loan. Where's my down payment? Down payment. All right, so these are the finance elements. We have the down payment, we have the gap loan, we have the tax incentive, we have the crowdsourcing, we have the net crowdfunding, we have the music, we have the branding, we have the mezzanine. So these are all it, right? So if we have all this, this would just be that number. And then this number should be, if I have this, I have to go from here minus this. So let's see what the equity looks like. 19%. Clear, I mean, it's probably something less, but let me just go format cell and make it 2. So is that the equity number you guys have?
296. I have 2965775.
Okay, what am I missing? Did you deduct it from the whole budget or?
I did both because one was the way the template had it, which was crowdsourcing and music and use the strike. But then I also did the other way of.
Okay, so where are you different? When you look at the finance elements here, where do you have a different number?
I have a different number on the down payment bottom line. Would you mind scrolling up to that, please?
Yeah, sure. This is the down payment because we're deducting the sales fee. Did you guys have this down payment as well?
Yes, 940. Yep.
940, 80, 800.
Yep.
And L,
yes.
does that make sense to you?
I'm working on it.
Yeah. So you're basically just deducting 16% from the down payment, which was 1,120,000. So Ari, you have this down payment, right?
Yes.
You have the bank loan, correct?
The bank loan, it's 3724. Yep. And then 2862. Yep.
Okay. Do you have the same production incentive?
Production incentive 3296, 375. Yep.
Crowdsourcing 250. Crowdfunding. Look at, do you have all the other numbers that we have here?
250, 18750, 120. Everything else is matching up. That's weird.
Yeah, so do you have your, I'm going to just say funding, excluding, funding excluding, because we're not going by the strike price, we're going by. So the funding excluding equity should be 13,034,225 if you're using these numbers. See here see my.
Yes, I have that, 1303.
Okay. So then
12 million something.
Then
I have 12,664,225.
I got this.
Oh, for the 12 million one of the things that I found that fixed it was that it was linked to the cell. If you're looking at it, it's D62 when it should be linked to 61. So the 375,000.
Yeah, I tweaked that and I still have the 12 million. Weird. Okay, I'm gonna keep playing with it, but I don't have 13 million, that's for sure.
Just tell me what you see in your funding sources. Tell me if you have any number that's different than this.
Whoever had the 18.54%, I also had that, the 18.54. Are you guys getting?
I have it. 18.
What should the percent be?
So the percentage should be, we're taking our, we have this much money. So I'm going to take the budget. I'm going to, this is how we get to the equity is we take our budget and we minus it by the number that we have. Should be this.
There's
Yeah,
20,000 that's off somewhere.
I have an overarching question. Are you teaching this course so we all have to hire you?
Please don't hire me. I have shit to do, people to kill. I don't have time for this. No, but I want you to, I'm glad we're doing this together because I want to see where you guys get stuck. I hope you don't find it too annoying.
Is there any way we could, if you could show us, Professor, the same document that we're using, maybe that might be helpful?
Because if you are, let me go into the templates. I hate doing these templates. I'm going to take these templates out, I'm telling you, because they're confusing.
Just want to double check. Are you guys linked with the crowdsourcing and music investment? With your total?
Not for the 12,664,225.
If you add, I think 250 and 120, I think you'll get 13 million.
Oh, yeah, those aren't linked.
Yeah, so add those.
Thank you. I'm going to go and check out.
So I guess, so if you don't add those and you're subtracting, you get to the strike price, right? So we're not using that. We're supposed to add the 250 and the 120 and get to the full budget and then do the equity from that. Is that correct?
You can, but it's like, that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're doing right now. We're basically not working with the strike price because if I work with the strike price, yeah. So I'm taking the equity by using all these finance elements.
Yep. 2965775. I'm getting that. 2965775.
So now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the template online. So don't use that template until I send you an email and changing it. I have to change it in all 3 courses, which would take too long. I don't want to hold you up for too long. I just want to make sure we understand this. It sounds like we found it's basically a formula mistake. I just want you to grasp the concept of it. So don't stick to your formula that the template, I'm going to take that template out because it's more confusing than anything else. Let's work on the fact that we need to understand what we're doing. So if you would not have the formula in front of you and you would start from scratch, do you understand how we got to these numbers? Does anyone not understand it? I really want to know.
No, I understand now. Now that we added now that we're not working on the strike price, I think I got the right number. Just to make sure, can you just confirm what the equity number is, just so that I can make sure? It's hard to see. I'm sorry.
Do you have it on the screen? Do you see the screen?
It's just a little hard for me to see. I'm so sorry. It's
no worries. It is
It's a little small.
965,775. I repeat, 2,965,775.
But then the equity percentage should be 18.54, right?
It's showing me 8. Hold on, let me go back and make sure that this is the right percentage.
Yeah, 18. Yeah, that should be 18.54.
Yeah, from the entire budget, correct.
And why again are we dividing that by the full 16 million instead of the strike price?
It wouldn't be wrong to do it the other way around either, because the other way around would just mean that you take the strike price and use the budget, use the equity to meet the strike price. So either way it would be fine. But you would get to this number differently because you wouldn't include the 370 here. You would take the 370 out and then you work just with the strike price number. You should end up at the same place though, because theoretically it should be getting you there. But you can work with both. You can work with the strike price and with the regular budget. a second. So we're this far, we got this. Yeah, you want to take a screenshot? No, yeah, you want to take a screenshot of this? Everyone, so you know what you're doing. So I'm going to the recoupment now. I'm going to take this away and I'm going to the recoupment. I'm actually going to copy this in here. Un momento, per favor. So I can say, I'm going to send you this. So you don't actually have to take a copy. It doesn't matter. So there we go. I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to send you this as a PDF. So you don't actually need to write this down. So now we're going back to recoupment. This is our recoupment. Are we clear on how we got to the recoupment? We're adding the US. We got our international. We're deducting the down payment and we get to this remaining revenues. This is how we got to the 15,680,000. Anyone questions about how we got to the recoupment? Then we're going to start paying people back.
Wait, could you go back for a second? That went too fast.
Of course.
On mine, it's adding in the brand integration.
I did that by hand also.
So then my total adds the brand integration, so it's higher.
Yeah. That's just because the brand integration in your cell was divided between delivery and closing. That's not the case in this midterm.
So we just put 0.
Use that.
Don't use that.
So use 0 there if you're using the.
Put a 0 there.
Okay.
And you should have the same number.
Yes, now I do.
Yeah. Good. So now we're gonna look at our revenues. I'm gonna take this one. Hold on. I'm gonna replace this. So we're working off what we have worked on together. Cut. And let's put this together. So this is what we all came up with here today. Does that make sense? We're paying back the collection agent first. We're paying back the gross bank loan. We have our sales estimates that we're paying back. We have a principal for the mezzanine. We have a premium. We have the new equity. We have the premium, and we have total expenses of 14,535,680. Do you guys have those expenses?
I think that's the old equity.
Is it? Hold on, let me check. Let me go to my old equity. Okay. See, my cell wasn't connecting. Happens also. Let's put this one up. There we go. How's this? Can you guys see this?
Yeah, that's what I have.
Okay, great. Great. So then we go to back on participation. Anyone has questions this far?
I do have a question because I feel like I always do the same mistake. So when we're doing the sales agents distribution expenses, which is at 16%, you're taking it away from the gross revenue, but you're not taking away the agency fee, right? So because I think what I used to do is I would subtract the agency fee and then I would do the 16%.
Well, the agency fee is 15%. The expenses is 1%. I just combined the two.
Yeah. No, what I mean is you have the collection agency, the 1%.
Correct.
And I think what I was doing, I was subtracting that from the gross revenue and then getting the 16% out. So I would always get a different number.
Okay, yeah, you have to think about what is the fee for? This fee is for the sales agent doing the work of selling your distribution rights. Therefore, it needs to be connected to your distribution revenues. So when you connect the 16% to your remaining revenues of 15,680,000, then you'll get to the 2,508,000. Remember, you already got the sales fee for the down payment, so you're not charging that again.
Okay.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's a separate kind of thinking process because the agent is connected to your remaining sales. The connection agent is actually also connected to the remaining sales, so not that different, but I want you to understand what you're paying for here, what the fee is for.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And everyone has this, did we all get to the net revenues of 694,320?
Yep. And just wanted to re-emphasize one thing, Jeanette. The reason why we zero out the brand integration, because we already got that revenue up front, and therefore it doesn't go through the comma, right?
Correct. Correct. Okay. Exactly. That's why we do it.
And I need a clarification. In fact, I understood, but just to be clear, for the equity, we are calculating the equity on the full budget,
yes,
but we are in order to reach the strike budget, right?
No, we're actually reaching we're in our calculation, what we did this morning, we're going by the full budget because we included the 370 that we got from music and from crowdsourcing, the in-kind services. We are including that as a funding component. And because we included it, we're going by the full budget. We could have gone the other way around where we say, we're just going to use the strike price and we're not including the 370 in our funding sources, in which case then the equity would go towards the strike price. But this morning we did it the other way around. It's not wrong to do it the other way, by the way. It's not wrong. We just did it a different way together here this morning.
Okay, but when calculating and when reaching, we have to have both the same number. Either we go with the full budget and full budget, or strike budget and strike budget, right?
Number, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, if we don't, then we have to rethink this whole thing, but we should have the same number. Now, when we do the profits, we're basically taking 694,320 and we're going into our profit participation. Does this look correct? This is wrong, actually. Hold on. This is the old equity.
Yeah, this is old.
Yeah, just do this. So here's where we are now. Is this what you guys have?
I have a different equity percentage. Mine says 9.27%.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same.
Okay, so let me check on that. Where is that coming from? Hold on.
You guys, are we going to start firm after this?
It is 9.27 because it wasn't connecting to my other equity.
Yeah, because the old one had a 16.3.
This is what it should be now. How are we looking? Is this better?
Yep, that's correct now.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. You did the you're better than me here. I love it. I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to send it to you guys. I'm sending it to everyone, of course, but I'm going to send it to you. Hold on, make a question to update it. I'm going to just make a note. We updated this today, 8/1/2020. And I'm going to change that. All right. Any questions about anything that we did today? Okay. Well, if you come up with questions, you let me know. Elle, do you want to stay on when we let everyone else go, or do you need to go somewhere and want to do this later?
I don't need to go somewhere. Mainly it's small things that add up to big problems. So it'll be like, I see a $50,000 bank loan fee in the Excel spreadsheet, but it's not mentioned in the problem. And so I'm not arriving at the right answer, or the problem says it's a 15% interest fee, but on the Excel spreadsheet, it says 8% fee. Like, it's those kind of dissonances that end up, like, I'm not even close to the correct number.
Yeah, because the Excel spreadsheets that are templates need to be updated by you with the numbers that you see in the problem. So if they have numbers in them and you use them for your new problem, you need to update them to what the assumptions are saying.
I'm not actually not using the spreadsheets. I'm just comparing. I'm using them as a comparison.
Well, I do want to then I do want to talk to you about it because I want to make sure that there's no wrong documentation on there.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, just
Yeah.
so you get on and I'm going to stop recording. Stop recording. How does this work? Stop recording.